Welcome to Manhwa Recaps, spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Huge shout out and special thanks to the channel members. The series starts with a man saying that he was a slave-born imperial guard who died protecting the mad emperor, who ended up making a pact with the demon. He wonders if he's going to be remembered as a knight who never abandoned his loyalty until the end, but perhaps as a foolish loser who failed to read the tides of time. In the end, neither sits well with him. We are introduced to Cain later, the imperial guard of the emperor. He says it would have been cleaner to vanish from everyone's memory, but we see a man asking why he turned his blade at the last moment, calling him an idiot. This is the rebel leader named Halo Reston. He calls Cain an idiot. Cain was born an orphan. He's lived for 29 years, making his own choices, and he shouldn't start a fight for no reason. Halo says that he could have fled, asking why he made a choice like this. He starts crying, telling him to open his eyes, calling him a bastard, and shaking him, but Cain's too far gone, as the life in his eyes has already left. We see him walking in a watery afterlife. The sky looks like Van Gogh's painting, and he asks if this is what death is. He says that for freedom, this isn't much at all, as it seems like he could be walking for eternity. Still, seeing Halo crying like that, it felt good to have someone care for him, but he says he'll manage on his own, and he decides to savor the so-called freedom. A blue aura starts to form in front of him. He turns, wondering what it is, as it flies directly into his eye. He's confused, and as if the painting was being washed away, he opens his eyes, seeing a man who looks very similar to Halo, saying that he was born healthy, calling him Karen. Cain's confused, and the man looks toward his father, asking if he'd like to hold him. The man picks him up, saying that he's not even crying, and he's a sturdy boy. Cain is still trying to think about what's going on, and the man tells him to grow strong and healthy, saying he can't wait to see what his youngest grandson does. Karen recognizes him as Halo, saying it is definitely him, he's just old and wrinkly now. Cain starts crying, and Halo says he didn't mean to make him cry. Cain tries to understand, asking if he really became Halo's grandson. It jumps to some time later, and we hear a man saying that the knight, Cain later, who met death alongside the emperor 45 years ago, though he could not stop his lord from straying onto a wrongful path, has come down to them as a symbol of unwavering loyalty, standing by his legion till the end. That concludes the latest opinion of their modern history society. He turns, asking the young master what he thinks. We see Cain asking what his view of it is. The professor says he thinks the Grand Duke simply wished to restore his friend's honor. After all, the story that Duke Halo and Lord Cain were friends is well known. Cain asks if he really thinks that's the case, and the professor asks what he means. Cain says that he thinks his grandfather holds a grudge against his dead friend, and that's why he's deliberately gilding his name. He was reborn as Karen Reston, third son of Halo, and the only child of Count Pale. The professor asks what he's talking about. Cain says that because his grandfather, rather than joining him on the road to revolution, can't accept that regardless of Cain's will, which is to have a quiet death, not to be called a hero. The professor asks what he means by a quiet death, saying of course there are records that the duel between the two of them ended far too quickly for men of such skill, those only hearsay. If he supposes that Cain chose death instead of joining his friend in a fight to the death, or in a revolution, it becomes reasonable, but he can't believe such a claim was made by a 10-year-old. Cain asks what he thinks. The professor says that if he agrees with that opinion, the dukedom's knights might charge him with blasphemy and kill him. Hesitant, he says a politically correct answer, that he's never considered this perspective before. Cain laughs, saying he's just kidding, asking why he looks rattled. He explains that right now his name is Karen, and as we can see, he's the youngest grandson of the Reston dukedom for the time being. It took him a while to piece the situation together, but in the end, he is now Halo's grandson, and he asks how dare that bastard make him a hero, saying he should have understood even without him saying it. We see his father kneeling, and Cain introduces him as Pale, Halo's youngest son, and that he is his father. Cain clears his throat, and Pale asks if his lesson is over. He says yes, asking if he was praying again, and if he's still worried about his awakening ceremony. His father is surprised he could tell, and apologizes. Cain asks what he's sorry about, and his father says that unlike his two uncles, he never awakened magic power, so he worries he might have passed down that burden to him. Cain puts his hand on his father's shoulder, and says no matter what anyone says, he's the greatest father to him. His father feels touched, hugs him, saying he's the greatest son, and pinches his cheeks. He asks what he'd like for dinner, and of course, Karen says meat. That night, he's laying in bed throwing a rock into the air, thinking about the awakening ceremony. He remembers Halo talking to him about it, and how it's a family ritual to unlock innate magic power. Kane says that means it's something you're born with, like a silver spoon, and he couldn't care less. Halo tells him not everyone can awaken, and even if he does, it doesn't mean he qualifies to become head of the family. Besides, there's said to be a secret passed down only to the head. Kane, curious, asks what it is, if it's a treasure or a grimoire. Halo says if it's something like that, he might be interested. Kane says only a little, but he'd like to live quietly somewhere remote. Halo laughs, and Kane asks if he's mocking his modest dream, reminding him he has a weapon in his hand. Halo says fine, when he becomes head, he'll tell him the secret. Kane says the ritual doesn't matter anymore. As he starts to release a blue aura, he tells his father not to worry, as he's already finished his awakening, and we learn it's been done for a while. The next day in town, his father asks if he's amazed, and Karen says yes, as it's his first time on a train. His mother says much of the technology used was possible, thanks to his father's sponsorship. Karen says he knew it, but Pale says his wife is just flattering him. She says that even if he says that, it's truly great, and he knows it. Karen says of course, and tells his father he's proud of him, and it's true. This man may not have awakened magic, but he alone supports 30% of the dukedom's finances. With his kind mother, and devoted father, he thinks they're perfect parents. They hop on the train, and ride along the tracks. Karen looks out the window, and spots the Reston family's main estate, the Azure Sea Fortress. There, he'll see his grandfather again, and also his old friend, Halo. He smiles, saying he's made him a great figure of history, but he'll become the opposite, making sure all his worries are in vain, and that he'll become somebody unbefitting of the family name. His father also sees his aura after waking up. Kane tells his old friend to wait for him, as his precious grandson is coming. The train finally arrives at the station, and when they exit an old man welcomes them, saying that he's finally arrived, and it's been a while. Pale says that it's been around a year, asking if he's been well, and we learn that his name is Heinrich. He says thanks to the Duke's grace, he is always well. Karen asks if those knights are from the Sea Wave Knights, and they stare at him. He says that they've already noticed he has awakened his mana, and they're definitely different from the guys in their territory. Though it's expected for that to be the case, it's only a matter of time before Halo hears about it, but it's not like it matters. Heinrich says that he'll guide them to the main palace now, and Pale tells him to lead the way. Once they get inside, a woman tells Karen that the Count asked for him to wait here while he greets the family elders, and to call if he needs anything. He thanks her, and says that this is just a reception room, but it's huge, and that the Azure Sea Fortress is really something else. He says there's nothing to do here, maybe he should have asked them to take him to the library. Someone laughs at him as he's looking out over the city, saying that going to the library as soon as he arrives at the main house, just like the rumors say, he's a real bookworm. Karen turns, wondering who this kid is, and the kid says that since he's his uncle's kid the chances of him awakening are slim, so he'd better hit the books. If he wants to make a crazy amount of money like the commoners, he should be just like his father. The barber fucked up his hair. Karen starts to get pissed, and the kid, startled, asks what's wrong, and if he really wants to fight. He says he's going to use a little bit of his magic power to give him a preview. Karen glares, asking if there's a mad dog growing up in the main house. The kid starts to realize he might have picked a bad fight, and says no way, realizing Karen's releasing his aura. He asks when he awakened, as his father never said anything about it. Karen says of course his father wouldn't have, as even his own father doesn't know yet, and more importantly, they have a problem. There's no need for two mad dogs in the same house. He'll be taking that role, and he tells him to step aside. The kid asks what he's talking about, and Karen says with that in mind, it's time for him to finally get a beating. The elders are having their meeting, talking about how Karen has awakened, and that 3 captains of the Night Order already confirmed it when they accompanied him to the station. The elders of the Reston family discuss it, and the second young master, Ringo, says that to think he would awaken his magic power, and even inform the main family, he wonders what Pale is plotting. Pale says of course not, he didn't even know. The first son, Tails, tells Ringo to stop with baseless speculation, as Pale has an awakened magic power, so it's understandable he didn't notice. Ringo calls him pathetic. A man barges into the room, telling Heinrich that he needs to come quickly. Heinrich asks what's wrong, and the guy's worried, wondering how to explain it. Even the 3 brothers wonder what's going on. We see Ringo storming off behind the butler, and Pale says there must be a misunderstanding. Ringo's face fills with anger as he sees his son beaten up, sprawled on the couch. Karen goes to greet him, and Ringo picks him up by the collar, asking how dare he not know his manners, asking what the hell he was doing, and what he was thinking by doing something like this. Pale tells him to stop, and Karen says it's simple why he did it, it's because Leo was insulting his father, and if it were his father there's no way he would have just stood by. Ringo says he's spouting nonsense now, and Pale puts his hand on his shoulder, telling him that's enough. Ringo tells Pale to back off, saying it's all because of his poor upbringing that his son's acting out. Heinrich tells them all to stop, as the lord of the family said he will pass judgment himself. Pale grabs Karen, telling his brother if he didn't hear him, and to let him go. He asks if he's okay, and Karen says he's fine. Heinrich says they should all go together, and Ringo still looks annoyed. Pale says they should get going as well, and Karen says yes, it's been a long time, and he's finally going to meet Halo. Inside his study, Halo asks what the reason was for causing such a huge incident the moment he arrived. Pale goes to explain, but Halo says he wasn't asking him, he wants to hear the answer from his son directly. He knows Pale's not thoughtless enough to cause trouble, and that he's raised his son to not cause trouble without considering the consequences, so there must be a reason, and he wants to know every detail. Karen is surprised he'll hear him out before punishing him, saying acting so generous doesn't suit him, and he tells him it's because Leo insulted his father. Ringo asks him to tell the truth, and Halo slams the desk, telling him to be quiet, asking how dare he raise his voice. Ringo apologizes. Halo says they can call for Leo and confirm the facts, asking Heinrich if Leo's treatment is finished. He says that it is, and he'll bring him at once. Halo says that's not the only thing he wanted to ask Karen. Karen says if he's asking about his magic power, he awakened it 3 years ago. Pale and his brothers are surprised, and Halo asks why he kept it hidden from his father until now. For him to do it on his own 3 years ago is crazy. Karen says he only realized it was magic power after reading a book later, and after he found out, he decided it was best to keep it secret. Halo asks why, and Karen says that having a secret is fun, and it was even more fun because the knights in his territory had no idea either. Halo asks if that's really all, and Karen says yes. The butler brings in Leo, bandaged up. Halo asks if it's true he insulted his uncle. Leo is hesitant to reply, and Karen puts on a scene, saying that even though his cousin made fun of his father, despite that, he should not have hit him, and he committed a sin. Leo says he never said this, but he has a PTSD attack of Karen's aura, so he gets terrified, and goes along with it. Halo asks if it's really true, and Leo says yes. Halo says he sees, for now, since the awakening ceremony is tomorrow, he'll postpone the punishment of both until after it is over, and they should keep that in mind as they are dismissed. Halo then asks Heinrich what he thinks about Pale's son. He says he's not sure about other things, but he felt there were many aspects that would be interesting. Halo says he agrees, not only did he awaken his magic power on his own, but he hid it until now. Furthermore, he seemed to be questioning the skill level of the knights assigned to his father's territory, as if subtly pointing out that by assigning such unskilled men, he was neglecting him. Heinrich says he's overthinking it, but Halo says he wishes that were the case. This child is different, and he'll find out what's special about him tomorrow. After all, they cannot know everything simply from the fact that he awakened his magic power. Whether he completes the awakening ceremony safely tomorrow, or if he doesn't, what he'll obtain there, he's extremely curious to find out. It takes us into the forest outside the city, and we see an altar. This must be where the ceremony will take place. The next day, at night, we see everybody in the family walking into the forest. Karen says the elders of the Reston family, although retired from active duty, he can sense that they are all incredibly skilled, and that Tails, the eldest son of Halo, and his daughter Leon are here, as well as Ringo and his second son Leo. For the whole family to be making such a fuss, it must be more important than he thought initially. They now stand before the altar, and Karen stares at it, asking if that is the Stone of Oath. Halo says it's time to begin, and that when he passes through the rift opened by the stone, beyond it a world the Stone of Oath shows him will unfold. They say that the world shown by the Stone of Oath is different for every person, and the ceremony will end when he uses the weapon he obtains there to destroy the world. Karen says he's ready, and Halo just stares at him, before deciding that it's time. He raises the amulet, wishing him good luck. As it starts to form a connection with the Stone of Oath, it unleashes a rift that looks as if the world therein is some kind of simulation, the way it loads in, but time and space itself starts to rip apart. The pressure is enough to make them brace themselves for it. Halo asks him what he's doing, and if he's scared. Pale asks if he's okay, and Karen says he'll be right back. He's supposed to use the weapon he gets from the world beyond to destroy it, and that'll be easy, since destroying things was always his job. As he enters, Halo looks proud, but warns him to overcome his fear. Karen enters the Matrix. The rest all stare, and when he is teleported inside, Karen is seen as the emperor of the empire he used to serve. During the day of the revolution, Karen wonders why this is what he's seeing, and of all places this is what came from his memories. It's trying to make him feel guilty by showing him his innocent comrades. As they get closer to the throne room, he hears a voice saying that his world is cruel and desolate, calling him the child of the blue wolves. They say that the time of the covenant has come, so they shall fulfill what was made with his ancestor. The door opens, and he asks if it's a demon. The voice continues, saying that the blood that flows in his veins cannot be invaded by a mere lowly demon, so he needs to overcome his fear, and ascend to the throne. He pushes past the gates, and the voice says that what he desires is in here. When he enters, he says it's been a while, and it looks like there's something on the throne. A throne the emperor wanted to protect so much that he even made a deal with the demon. He didn't know that his comrades and he died because of that, and it feels like he's walking on their corpses just to reach here. The voice continues, saying that the child who received the blessings of the cold North Sea, though his soul has been lost, has finally arrived, and on behalf of the Blue Clan, it welcomes him. The sword that he used when he was king, the sword the emperor bestowed upon him, is here, a demonic sword called Ruin. The voice tells him to infuse his mana into it, and he says that's a demonic sword that eats the user's soul. The voice tells him that the evil thoughts that dwelled in it were extinguished by his grandfather, and what he's seeing is merely a distorted form placed by a demon. The voice tells him to awaken it once more, saying that only he can do it. He wonders if it's okay for him to touch it, saying he might return to his past self due to countless lives obeying the emperor's orders. He then recalls his grandfather's words, telling him to overcome his fear. Now he realizes what it is, saying he was being unusually kind. The true purpose of this ceremony isn't just to obtain a weapon, but for the family heir who has awakened the azure clarity to overcome the source of his fear. He grabs the sword, saying if that's the case, there's only one thing left to do. He starts to infuse his mana into it, and when he does, he's teleported to the depths of an ocean. He asks if this is the azure clarity. The sword begins to change form from a demonic sword back to a normal one. He says he doesn't know why the sword met him in such a form, but that sword is the original sword of his progenitor, Rael. The sword his grandfather took is also a progenitor's sword, but unlike his grandfather's, the reason this sword was not even recorded in historical text is because the power it possesses is extremely different from his family's. He starts to get overcome with the feeling of it. He sees it surging through his body, and when he comes to, he asks what this is. The voice tells him to endure it, as the mana within the sword is being engraved into his body. He says the mana energy flowing into his body has become more intense, and for the sword to have such an effect, it's incredible. He asks the voice what the real name of the sword is. The voice tells him that it is a sword that has to be wielded against demons, devouring their powers. A sword that even demons feared, and that its existence was erased from their memory. A sword born from the deep sea of the north, a place dark yet pure. It is the execution sword, the guillotine. That is the true name of this blade. He stares down at it, and the voice continues, saying that it is a sword that resembles the deep sea's darkness, and that it suits his destiny well. He asks who the voice is, saying that judging by the way they call themselves part of the clan, they must be the Blue Dragon, their family's guardian. The voice says that he doesn't have the name to handle their true name yet, and if he can one day dominate the sea with his power, then to come find them in the North Sea. Karen thinks about it, and seems annoyed, but then asks how he gets out of here. The voice says that he should already know, and he asks if it really is just as simple as breaking it. He says he's always wanted to try breaking the throne, and he starts to infuse his mana into the sword before swinging it down. Outside, the air is tense, and Halo can tell that Pale is worried. He tells him not to worry too much. Pale apologizes. Halo says that it must be painful to watch his son walk a path he's never been on, and he knows it's not easy, but that's all the more reason to compose himself. Pale smiles at his father's words, before the Stone of Oath starts to open once more, but it's not only opening, it's starting to break. Halo's surprised as he turns, and once more it starts to have that distorting effect as it pulsates through the forest, and the altar itself begins to break. Halo asks what the hell is going on, then Karen stands before them holding the blade, showing that he really came back. But where the stone went, they don't know. They're still trying to process what happened. Pale starts freaking out, asking what he's done by breaking the stone. Karen starts to get anxious as well, and Halo is surprised because he's staring at the weapon, saying that that's guillotine, and he recognizes it as the blade owned by their ancestor Rael. It was erased from the family's history, passed down only orally to the head of the family and the elders, so why has it suddenly appeared now? He asks Halo if perhaps he's not afraid of the sword, but he wonders if the time of the covenant is approaching. Karen looks down at the blade, and says that he isn't. Halo says that he sees, and long ago their ancestors who could not fulfill the covenant with the blue dragon to annihilate the demons left behind the stone of oath as proof of the covenant, vowing to the future, waiting for the day the one who would carry it out would appear. He wonders if maybe that means Karen is the one to succeed it. Halo raises his hand, declaring that Karen, son of Pale, is a rightful member of the fortress, a direct descendant chosen by the guillotine, and worthy of inheriting the Spirit Sea style. Ringo, still pissed about his son's fucked up haircut, says he can't believe a brat would be the one to receive it. Tails looks chill with it though, more curious about the blade itself, while Pale comforts Karen. Tails says he thought he knew every weapon handed down to their family, but he's never even heard of that sword, and just looking at it sends chills down his spine. He says he recognizes that Pale's son is walking a path he could never tread, but he will not let that sway the variable in their matter of success. Halo says the awakening ceremony is over, and it's time to return. As they start to leave, Ringo yells at his brother, asking if he's going to stand by and watch. Tails tells him they'll have to speak privately soon, and says that even someone overflowing with greed beyond his abilities must be feeling this crisis. They ask if he knew about the sword, and Tails says he did not. Ringo says he cannot possibly understand the situation, wondering why it's Pale's son of all people. Tails says what matters now is that this is not the time to fight amongst themselves. Back at the train station the next day, Pale asks Karen if he'll really be fine being left alone. Heinrich asks if there is any place safer than their fortress. Pale says that's true, and it's safe from external threats, but what he worries about are the internal threats, meaning his brothers. But with his father there, he doubts they would act rashly. Heinrich clears his throat, saying that the one assigned to conduct the Spirit Sea style inheritance for the young lord is none other than Lady Sabina. Pale says he hasn't seen his aunt in a while, but if it's her, he can be at ease. Karen recognizes her name, saying that she is Halo's sister, known as a master no less skilled than Halo, and once called the White Wolf. Pale tells him that his aunt has always doted on him, so he should make sure not to show her any disrespect. Karen says he'll do his best, and Heinrich says he has a message from the family head, that he would prepare a residence for him in the fortress so he may visit any time. Pale looks touched, and starts crying, saying he's so grateful for his father. Thanks to that, he can leave without worry, and he thanks Heinrich. Heinrich tells him not to think anything of it. Pale tells him to take care, and if he ever needs help to contact him. He heads back on the train, and Karen heads back up to the top of the fortress, looking down. Heinrich tells him they should go, as Sabina is waiting. Karen says that's good, because he can't keep his aunt-grandmother waiting. Heinrich says he wants to offer him a piece of advice, if he may. Karen says of course, and Heinrich says that Sabina dislikes being called grandmother the most, and it would be best to refrain from using that term. Karen says he'll keep that in mind, and thanks him for the advice, but wonders what's wrong with calling a grandmother a grandmother. They enter the fortress, and Heinrich says that only direct descendants of the family may enter this cultivation chamber, and that Sabina is already inside, telling him to go in. Also, that Leo is here too. Karen says to be with Leo seems like it's going to be fun, and Heinrich says that Leo specifically requested for Sabina. Karen says he'll be heading in then, and as he runs away, Heinrich watches, saying that it will get lively again after a long time. Behind the door, he can sense the aura, and says that he can tell it's serious in there. She yells, asking why he's standing outside and not entering. He enters, greeting her with a respectful gesture, and he's surprised. She asks if he's surprised that she doesn't look as expected, and we see that she looks way younger than Halo does. She says to think that he is Pale's son, time sure does fly. He wonders if she reconstructed her body with magic, saying that is the realm of an 8-star knight, but there's no way. She asks why he's standing there blankly, telling him to go sit in a cross-legged position next to Leo. This boy needs to fire his barber. Karen takes a seat, saying that it looks like they'll be seeing each other often, and they should get along. Leo agrees, and Sabina says that she never thought she'd hear the title White Wolf from someone as young as him. He says that he likes history, so he read it in a book. She says he's just as interesting as her brother said. He asks if she can tell him what grandfather said about him. She says that he's someone she'll take a liking to, and now that she sees him for herself, She understands why he said that. There was actually more though, and she says that he told her that he's a child who must navigate the vast ocean, and she needs to help him so one day he may rule the sea. She should act as some sort of lighthouse. She says she's only seen him for a moment, but she can clearly tell that his potential is immense, rough and endlessly vast, just like the open sea. She gets up off her seat, saying that it's time to begin, and that the position they're in now is the most basic foundation for mana training. Once they pass the introductory stage, it becomes possible to do mana training without the position. She demonstrates it, saying they'll be able to do it even in their sleep. This is the first time this kid's hair has looked normal. Karen says that this is the Azura mana, and he recognizes it from the Oath Stone. She tells him that the sea domination technique is literally a method to rule the sea, and by using Azura mana, he creates and operates oceans within his body. Naturally, he becomes stronger by operating more oceans. When he can operate 8 oceans, he reaches the 8-star level. The stage where he can operate those 8 oceans as if they were one giant sea is the 9th star, and on the entire continent only 3 have reached that level, and in the empire only 1 person. Karen says that it's his grandfather, and she says that's correct. Karen is determined this time to reach where Halo is in this life. She can feel the desire coming off him, and says that he's an interesting boy, and he'll be fun to train. He decides it's time to start, and she says first that he should let the mana flow through the passages opened by the ritual, and remember that the power of the sea is not something to be controlled but to be accepted. He starts to feel his mana, saying that it feels like rough waves, and he needs to calm it down. He starts to focus it from his heart, and he looks much different than Leo in terms of how much mana he's producing. She notices this, asking if this is really the mana of a kid who just finished the awakening ritual. Even Leo, who has been taught the domination technique for the last 2 years, has only just begun aiming for the 2nd star level. In contrast, Karen is carving out his mana passages on his own, even though she hasn't taught him how yet. Karen says he feels a pain as if his body is being torn apart, and he starts to stop his training. She wonders if he's feeling the strain, saying it's good he can even control his pace. She looks over, noticing that Leo is tweaking off some fent, and she says she told him not to force himself to operate his mana. He apologizes, and she says she was so focused on Karen she forgot that even if they've awakened their mana, they're still just children. But just wonders why his hair is so fucked up. That's why she needs to act like the adult to prevent them from harming their bodies. Karen calls him pathetic, saying it's impressive he managed to stop his own limits so he wouldn't strain his body. At such a young age to have the composure to control himself despite his desire to grow stronger shows how bright her older brother was, but she doesn't think she'll need to act as his lighthouse. She walks over, calling out to him, saying that in 3 years she'll guarantee his safety, and he should focus on building the strength to protect himself. He says okay. Now it's time for practical training, so they head out to where all the other trainees are. Fantasy Saitama is training too. The instructor turns, seeing Leo and Karen walking in. Leo asks if he's really planning on using that sword for training. Karen says of course, as everyone kept saying its aura is menacing, so he's not even allowed to take it out of the scabbard. Leo says that's not what he's talking about. The instructor welcomes the two of them. Karen looks up to him, and the guy introduces himself, saying that today he will be in charge of his sword training, and he is the Knight Commander of the Sea Wolf Knights. His name is Zeras Winterguard, but he can just call him Sir Zeras. Karen says it's a pleasure to meet him, and he can tell at a glance that he's at the 8-star level. Zeras says that he may find this rude, but he will not be addressing them with the title of young master or anything, not until they are acknowledged. Karen says he shouldn't worry about it, as it's more comfortable for him actually, since he's not used to that title anyway. He's well aware that it's a Reston family tradition to earn the respect of the Blue Wolves through skill. Zeras says that's a pretty interesting reaction, since most would find it disrespectful. Leo is no exception, and Leo just wonders why he's catching a stray. Karen stares at him, laughs, saying it won't matter, as they will all bow before his feet. Zeras says that maybe a successor with a proper head on his shoulders has finally arrived, then wonders if maybe someone even worse has arrived, and that he's definitely going to be worse than Leo has ever been. We get a whole 3-year time skip, and Halo is drinking, but so is Sabina. She says that as expected, her brother's liquor is definitely the best, and Halo says it's about time she stops stealing his collection. She tells him to stop saying such disappointing things, since she spent a whole 3 years teaching. He says these 3 years sure have flown by, and asks what her impressions are of the boy after watching him so far. She says there's only one thought she's really had, and that the boy is a monster. Halo says she has some nerve calling his grandson a monster, and she says even the word genius could be an insult to him. Halo asks Zeres if he has the same thought. He says that if he may state his opinion after observing him for the last 3 years, he's of the same opinion as Sabina, in every aspect, his physical abilities, talent, attitude, will towards training, as well as the fact that he feels superior when compared to the first grand heir who was rumored to be a genius. Halo asks if he's really comparable to Hugo, saying that a talent greater than him would be crazy since he's said to be the best in the empire. Zeres says that's what he believes. Sabina says this will cause trouble for the family if not managed properly, and Halo asks what she's talking about. She says that he needs to think about the influence Karen will have on the line of succession, and what he'll mean to his sons. He asks if she's suggesting that her sons could become a threat to their own nephew. She says he may have it under strict control now, but if his outstanding talent becomes known throughout the empire, it will influence who succeeds him, and what will happen after. Halo realizes that she's right. She sighs, saying that now that the Stone of Oath has been broken, their family might be finished, since the number of magical beasts crossing over from beyond the North Sea has sharply increased. He tells her to stop saying such absurd things. The one who broke it will raise a new one, just as their founding ancestor raised the stone long ago. She says that's the first time she's heard of it, asking if it's a prophecy passed down only to the family head. He says yes, it means the time of the covenant is imminent. She says it seems the shoulders of their cute youngest will become very heavy, asking when he's going to tell Karen. Halo says he'll do it when the time is right. Karen's writing a letter to his father, asking if he's well. He says first he has to apologize for not being able to visit, as he is engrossed with training. The weather is getting colder, and since his father is sensitive to the cold, he should dress warmly. He says that he recently mastered the 4th stance of the J style, and the 4th form of the harang swordsmanship. As instructed, he's trying his best to get along with the relatives, and he's taking good care of Leo. He tells his father that he has a favor to ask, saying that he's run out of allowance, asking for some money. P.S. that he needs to send over a good barber for Leo. His father laughs, asking Heinrich if he remembers how anxious he was when he first left him in the fortress 3 years ago, but to think he'd adapt so well is surprising. Heinrich says that these days the fortress is never quiet, thanks to the young grand heir. Pale says he's told him many times that it's not good to stand out, and Heinrich says a jewel shines even when it's still. He says that's true, and Heinrich says the situation may change from now on, and it may become impossible to prevent information about him from spreading outside the fortress. Pale asks if he's trying to say that he might be assigned on a mission soon. Heinrich says that is correct, and he must accomplish the task given by the Blue Wolves. Pale says he knows, but what worries him is that his 2 older brothers will not be pleased with his son's growing influence. Heinrich says there's only one thing he can say, that Sabina is extremely fond of Karen. Pale realizes that with his aunt there, it will be hard for them to do anything, and says that Karen has told him in his letters these past 3 years how much she cares for him, but he's reassured to hear it from Heinrich. Heinrich says that Sabina has always been fond of Pale too. He says it seems the allowance he's been sending every month has paid off, and Heinrich laughs, saying that since he's able to make jokes, it seems his worries are being eased. Pale says that his aunt is also scheduled to leave the fortress soon though. Heinrich says he believes he doesn't need to worry about that either, because Karen has formed a strong bond with the Knights of the Fortress. It's an irreverent title, but not to the point where the Knights have personally given him a nickname. Pale laughs, saying he's heard of that nickname as well, and he's called the young mad dog of the Azure Sea Fortress. We see one of the Knights fighting, and it's none other than Karen, who shatters his own blade. The guy tells him to stop, as he's already lost, asking how he could just twist the path of his sword and take the hit. We learn the man's name is Hans. Karen says that he must know how the harang sword is useless if he's overpowered, so he estimates strength with strength, and a grown adult like him can't be this weak. Hans says that he's probably the only one who would criticize his strength, and Karen says that his muscles are just for show. Hans says that's the first time he's ever been told that too, and Karen says he's only being honest. Hans then says that he now finds it overwhelming to face him without using magic, and it wasn't this bad just last year. It looks like he might be deployed on a mission soon. Karen asks if he heard anything. He says that only Zeres will be deciding the mission deployment time instead of the family head, since he's in the capital, and perhaps he'll be sent to the granary region in the western part of the duchy, since the magical beasts have become more frequent there. Karen asks Leo if he heard what they said about being deployed on a mission. Awful Haircut says he doesn't want to be deployed on the same mission as Karen, and the man he's fighting tells him to focus on his match. Leo apologizes, saying that a mission is still a mission, and if he completes it, Perhaps his mother and father will be pleased. Back to Pale. He tells Heinrich the reason he asked him to come in person was not because of the letters. Heinrich asks what the matter is, and Pale tells him to take a look at this. The thief's inspectors discovered it in a merchant wagon coming from the Aberrany of Bellies. He puts his fingers in it, asking if this is what he thinks it is. Pale says it is. It's a narcotic called cocaine, and he needs him to investigate the Aberrany of Bellies from here in the fortress. Heinrich raises it to his nose, getting some whiplash from when he was a coke fiend in his younger days. We see a train arriving, and a man exits, asking if this place is the Azure Sea Fortress. Elsewhere that night at the castle, we see some guards patrolling, and Karen looks like he's trying to sneak out. He says it's always a thrill to mess with Zeres's collection, and just because he's in a kid's body doesn't mean he's forgotten the taste of liquor. Then he spots two people, and he asks one of them as he's never seen them before. The guy is asking one of the butlers if it's true that the Duke is absent, as this is an urgent matter. The butler says that he has gone to the capital to have an audience with His Majesty, and for now the Knight Commander is acting instead. Karen calls out to them, and the butler is surprised to see him. Karen asks what brings him so late at night, and the man says this is Baron Rohan of House Bellies, and he has an urgent request. Karen stares at him, and Rohan says that if he's the young duke that would make him the son of the third prince who was pushed out of succession. Unlike his father, he's heard he awakened to magic and is training at the main house. He tells him it's an honor to meet him, and introduces himself, but Karen says he'll hear him out. The butler says it would be better to send him to the Knight Commander, but Rohan just wonders why the hell he's holding a bottle of liquor. Karen says normally he eats in proxy, but if he came in person, that means it's urgent, and it's only proper that a noble be the one to receive him. The butler says he'll go and inform Zeres separately, and Karen says that's good. Rohan just hopes he's not a troublemaker, thinking his political judgment is impressive, but that liquor bottle still bothers him. Rohan asks if the Reston family is always like this, drinking at such a young age. Karen asks if the problem is the bandit group settled in the eastern mountains of the barony. Rohan says that's correct, and Karen says ever since the bandits appeared, suddenly drugs are circulating, and commoners are being kidnapped and sold as slaves. Rohan says yes, it's shameful, but their barony has poor, barren land, and no specialties. For a whole year they haven't even had a proper military, so they couldn't respond. Unable to bear it, his father led what little soldiers they had to attack the bandits, but instead they suffered heavy losses, and his father has been bedridden due to the battle. Because of his incompetence, both his father and the people are suffering. Karen puts the liquor bottle down, saying that bastards like that deserve to be ripped apart and killed, but there are also things that don't make sense. Even if his military power is weak, for bandits to stand up to a regular army is strange. Rohan says it's not confirmed, but they suspect they have deserters from the southern kingdom that's at war. Karen thinks about it, saying that he's heard ever since the dethronement of the evil emperor, the imperial army, which was downsized, has been focused on the south because of the war. With no room to spare for the north, it's natural that holes in public order would appear, and indeed the theory that deserters became bandits seems plausible. He then says that the mood isn't light, and asks if he wants a drink, laughing. Karen says he may not know this, but the Bellies barony borders the territory where his father lives, and from his position this isn't something he can overlook. If possible, he'd like to personally help. Rohan thanks him, but wonders if it's really okay to drink liquor given by a child. Karen says that this liquor was swiped from Zeres's collection, so it must be kept secret. Rohan says Zeres is the Knight Commander though, and Zeres enters, saying that they both agree he would stop touching his liquor. Rohan is startled, and Zeres apologizes, saying that he's been discourteous. Zeres says there's no way the young baron could have known, so he shouldn't trouble himself. He's heard about the bandits troubling his barony. Rohan says that's right, and that's why he's come to the fortress to see if the knights might come. Zeres agrees, saying the matter is pressing, and Karen just laughs. Zeres tells him alcohol is not good for his age, and snatches the cup away. Karen says to give him back his liquor, and Zeres says he's sorry he's seen such an unsightly scene. Rohan tells him it's fine, and Zeres says that since he's come to them, they will not sit idle in the face of an old companion's hardship. Rohan says that's welcome news, and Zeres says they'll soon organize troops to dispatch, so he shouldn't worry. Rohan says he's relieved that he can bring good news to his people. Karen says that he'd like to go. Zeres says that won't do, as the enemy is trained, and who knows what experts may be among them. Rohan asks if this kid was serious about wanting to help, since he may be training at the main house, but he looks no more than 12 or 13. Zeres says that in just 3 years, He's raised his magic to the 4th star realm, and advanced to the 4th form of their swordsmanship, but real battle is different. Karen says that overprotection is not good, and he'd rather be sent west because a visible danger is better than an unseen one. Zeres says he has no intention of letting him risk fighting enemies whose size, strength, and base are unknown. Karen then says that he'll make him an offer he can't refuse. Rohan and Zeres wonder what it is. Coconut Head asks why he's here, and Karen says this is exciting, since it's their first mission. Zeres says that he's been had to think that he would bring Sabina forward. She says the two of them are so cute. Zeres says it might be a good thing, since it means a reliable guardian will accompany them. She too once got excited about her first mission. Zeres says that seeing he accepted on the condition Leo goes along must mean that she's satisfied with their training. Rohan says that for them to have the legendary white wolf here is crazy, and he wonders if it'll really be okay though with just 2 brats, and if anything happens to the Duke's grandson, his house may be held responsible. Zeres tells him not to worry, because the things the young bear in fear will not come to pass. Rohan asks if it was that obvious, and Zeres says that with Sabina with them, nothing will befall the two of them. Sabina then says that unless the 2 kids are in mortal danger, she doesn't plan on stepping in. Both Leo and Rohan look like that's awful news, and Zeres says he knows she trusts in their growth, but still that's too much. She says he knows it's more than just that, there's a reason she mustn't step out to the front. He says he understands, and if that's truly her will, he'll accept it. The train signals it's ready to leave, and she says that time is up. Leo starts to weaken because his hairline's cooked, and Sabina says that's only natural for him to feel nervous, but still he should think of it as his chance to prove how hard he has worked for the last 3 years. It's a chance to be recognized as a member of the Blue Wolves. He says that she's right, and Karen asks if he always needs someone to push him from behind. Leo tells him to shut up, and they hop on the train. Karen says he needs to find their spot. Leo says he knew this would happen, that there would be a time he'd have to prove himself. The magic train, now departing through Belize, leaves, and Leo says he never thought it would come this soon. It turns out that it's confidential that she's even here in the fortress, which means she can't publicly step forward. The moment her presence is known, the bandits will vanish without a trace, and surely Rohan wouldn't want that either. He says that he doesn't, but he wonders if it's really okay to entrust it to just these 2 children, since one doesn't even seem to know the meaning of the word nervous, and he thought this was his first mission. The other one just worries him so much because his haircut is awful, and he can tell Leo is very lost in thought right now. Leo is just thinking about his mother, recalling her asking if he even knows how to think, asking how he can get along with that boy Karen, asking if he's forgotten what happened 3 years ago, that he should remember well that he's not his friend but his rival, that he was disgraced by him and tarnished his father's reputation, yet he still laughs and jokes with him as if nothing happened. He must not even have a brain in his head, and if he has a tongue then he should say something back. He needs to be a man. Leo says that he's sorry, but they are not rivals. Even brother Hugo, the so-called genius, didn't reach 3 stars until he was 14. Karen reached it at only 13, and compared to that he only managed to reach 3 stars this year at 15. Surely she can see the difference herself, and that Karen may be his goal, but he can never be his rival. She says that he must cast aside that inferiority complex. Then he says that's not what this is. Karen's existence is the driving force that pushes him to work harder and move forward on his own. She says his eyes show that he really is blind, that he's staring at the trees but not seeing the forest. Sabina calls out to him, snapping him out of it. She asks if it's that hard for him to shake off his nerves. He says that it is, and she says it's understandable since this is his first mission, asking if he'll be able to bring himself to cut someone down. Karen is the kind of boy who would sell him off if it meant saving his own skin, but she knows Leo's not the same, and he doesn't need to doubt himself anymore. She knows better than anyone how hard he has worked these last 3 years, after all she was the one who trained him. He says that she's right, calling her master, and she says that has a nice ring to it. They have 20 minutes until they arrive in the territory. Sabina says that for this mission they should address each other as master and disciple. He agrees, and Rohan asks where she's going. She says that if she appears at the station, word will spread instantly, so she needs to move out first. He says the train is still moving though. He keeps calling her the White Wolf, so she corrects him, saying to just call her Lady Sabina. Karen says she's as bold as ever, and she says that her grandnephews will be watching close by, so he doesn't need to worry. She hops out the window, he yells after her, and Karen just laughs. Rohan and Leo both wonder why the hell everybody in the Reston family is like this. We see an old man coughing, and this is Rohan's father. saying that his body is not in the best shape, so he hopes they'll forgive him for receiving the young wolves of Reston while sitting down. Karen says that he shouldn't mention it, asking how his wounds are. He says that he's past the point of danger, so he appreciates their concern, and he doesn't know if Karen remembers, but he once met him and his father 10 years ago. He says he has grown splendidly. Karen says he should speak casually, as he's not well versed in etiquette, and it only makes him uncomfortable. Rohan asks if even if he's uncomfortable, young lord at least. Karen says to put him more at ease. The Baron says that if he's already on his first mission, let him see, he's reached the 4th star at such a young age. Karen says that his cousin Leo is stars though, and Leo wonders why he's catching another stray. Karen is surprised that since the Baron's not a warrior, yet he knows quite a lot. The Baron says that even if he's not, for him to be dispatched means he's thought of very highly, and because of that he hesitates to assign such a dangerous task to promising young men. Karen says he understands his concerns, but if they fail their mission, it would disgrace the proud honor of the Blue Wolves, and they have no intention of failing. He asks Leo if he agrees, saying they'll see it through without fail. The Baron laughs, thanking them, then begins coughing. Rohan asks if he's okay, and Karen says it seems he needs a rest, so they should leave. He says he'll entrust this to them, the guide has been prepared, so just follow. Karen says okay, and as they're heading out, Leo calls to him. Karen asks if he's tired already, and Leo says that's not what he means, but he wants to know if they can trust this so-called herbalist. Even if he's a skilled local guide, there's no guarantee he isn't in league with the bandits. Karen asks if he's finally starting to use his brain, saying that he definitely is part of the crew. He asks how he knows, and Karen says because of the talk he had with Rohan when they first arrived at the station. He asked him how they planned to track down the bandits' hideout, and Rohan said that he sadly had no choice but to make use of a traitor from within their territory. Karen thought that was a good method, and he informs Leo that's the gist of it. Leo asks why he didn't tell him earlier, and Karen says because he was wound up in his nerves all day. Leo says still, to think he would knowingly stick with a traitor, he sure is cunning. Karen says exactly, the fact that he hasn't been punished all this time shows as much, but it also shows how desperate they are, which is why they're the bait now. Noble sons traveling through the barony toward a neighboring domain, the perfect setup. Looks like they're about to reel them in, as the herbalist turns with the bandits behind him, saying this is good, and that he's added a little more than promise since they're nobles. The bald guy says that these young masters don't look like they'll come quietly. Karen instantly draws his blade, saying that vermin like them should not dare spread narcotics in his father's territory. At the Bellis barony, the Baron is still coughing. Rohan asks his father if he's alright, and he says that he is. Rohan walks over, handing him some water, and the Baron thanks him. Rohan just looks worried, asking if he thinks the 2 young dukes will be okay. His father says that to dispatch the 2 boys to their domain without any proper information on the bandits must be taken as a sign of how confident they are in the boys' skills. Besides, that boy named Karen reminds him of the young duke, not just his appearance, but his confident demeanor and relaxed attitude. He believes it will be alright to have expectations of the 2 boys. Rohan says okay. Back in the forest, we see blood being spilled all over the ground. Karen has cut off the heads of some of the bandits in an instant, displaying just how skillful he is. Leo can't help but watch as Karen single-handedly takes care of all of them. As he's looking at the herbalist crying in his final moments, Leo says that he's a monster, and that's the only way he can describe what he's witnessing from a 13-year-old boy. Even the bandits are horrified. One of them tells the leader that he doesn't think they're ordinary, and they should retreat and inform the main unit, but the dude is pissed and charges in, saying he won't be taken down by some brat. He says that he'll show him exactly what he's made of as he leaps into the air, releasing aura. Karen calmly and fluidly swings his sword forward, saying that he's so damn loud, and it pisses him off. As we see the leader getting cut straight down the middle, he falls to his knees. Leo says that he drew his blade without even realizing it, and Karen starts cleaning his sword from the blood, saying that his clothes are dirty too. Leo resheathes his, saying that Karen is one thing, but the sword aura emanating from his blade felt overwhelming, like he could slit his throat at any moment. The bandits surrender, one of them yelling it over and over. Karen asks what his name is, and he tells him his name is Ura. Karen asks if Ura has a rope, and he says he does. Karen tells him to bring it over, and Leo wonders what he's doing. We see Karen and Leo with their hands tied, and Leo asks if they really have to go this far. He says he understands tying him up, but is it necessary to have the guy carry their weapons? Karen says he told him to act as bait and find their base, so they have to be convincing. How would it look if they were walking around with weapons? This way it makes sense they were captured and taken away, otherwise it wouldn't make sense for them to be taken by a guy like this. And he wants to get some information on the way. He yells out to Ura, asking if they are deserters. He says they were from the 9th Regiment, 1st Battalion of the 3rd Infantry Division of the Kingdom of Sayas. Leo says that means they're from the south where the war is, and Karen asks how big their group is. Ura says that including a mage and his 2 knight escorts, they are a total of 130 men. Karen says a mage is surprising, and 130 deserters is a lot. Ura says it is, and he realizes he picked the wrong guys. He thought they were just common nobles, but the blue aura from Karen's eyes earlier means they must be the children of House Reston, the heart of the Oryish Empire. Karen is still thinking about the mage, saying that even for deserters, why did they come all the way to this remote northern region? Ura says it's simple, their commander promised them enough money to live a life of leisure, so they all followed him. Karen says that for the commander of a mere infantry to be accompanied by a high-level mage, and for them to have a bunch of guys acting like bandits just for money, it doesn't make sense. Ura says they'll be arriving soon, and Karen says he'll know for sure once he sees it with his own eyes. At their stronghold, some men on top of the watchtower ask if Ura really brought hostages, asking where the others are, why he's alone, and why he's carrying their weapons. Ura says he took them from these brats, and this is his kill, so they shouldn't touch. The rest of the comrades are chasing after the guards of these brats who ran away, so they should hurry up and open the gate. One of the dudes asks why he's being so sensitive, wondering if he's excited about being praised by the boss for the first time. Another asks if he couldn't have brought them back sooner. Ura tells him to shut up, and Karen says that for a guy who joined a band of thieves, he's really soft, and that there's this weird power he's been feeling ever since. Ura, sweating nervously, looks at Karen's blade, saying that he's been getting a spooky feeling for a while. Karen says if his blade is reacting too, then it might be more than he thought. Leo tells him to take a look, and they see birds nailed up, crucified. Karen says that if a sacrifice has been strung up, this is definitely none other than black magic. They are now standing before the magic circle. Karen tells Ura to cut his ropes and give him his sword. He does so, and Karen tells Leo to draw his blade now, that he'll be needing it very soon. Leo asks what he means before skeletons begin rising from underneath. Ura screams, and Leo wonders how their haircuts are still better than his, as an entire group of soldiers forms. A man yells saying the hostages walked in on their own and it's a blessing. We see the leader of the group welcoming them with a bunch of archers, calling them precious noble brats. Karen says there's no location for the black wizard, and figures he's probably hiding somewhere chanting a spell, and they're such creepy dudes. Karen says if they attack, he'll cut Ura's throat, asking if they're okay with that. Ura gets scared, and Leo asks how they're the ones in a hostage situation now when they're meant to have the honor of nobles. The leader stares at him for a second as his men stay honed in, and asks how a noble is taking a hostage, since they're supposed to value honor above all. Karen asks why they can't when they do it, and Ura is just scared. The leader says he's amusing, but wrong, that a hostage without value is meaningless, and that one is completely useless, so he can do whatever he wants with him. Karen gets annoyed, calling Ura worthless. Ura says that's his fault he guesses, and Leo says they're outnumbered, asking Karen if he even has a plan. Karen says of course he does, all they have to do is take down the commander. He starts to release his aura. The commander recognizes its color, saying there's no way. Karen tells Leo that he'll let him deal with the skeletons, and Leo asks what he means. Karen now starts to release the azure mana, saying he will handle the commander himself. As if the waves of the ocean were supporting him, it envelops him, and he leaps off the ground. Leo calls out as one of the skeletons attacks, and Leo blocks, asking Karen what the hell he's thinking, and how he's meant to take down this many skeletons alone. The leader yells for his men to fire as Karen gets closer, but Karen says he's way too late. Using the fortress's sword style, he swings forward, cutting the arms off a few of the archers, the motion like waves from the ocean. The commander yells, reaching for his blade, but Karen says this is just a nuisance, swinging forward at him. The commander looks down at his own hand, severed, dropping to his knees, screaming in pain. Karen says if he was going to attack, he should have done it faster. The commander calls him a bastard, saying surely their fortress has no strength to spare for their territories, so why is he here? Karen says this barony is right next to his father's domain, and he won't kill him, he'll just drag him back to the fortress. As Leo keeps taking apart soldiers, Karen says he's not doing bad. The archers still point their arrows but don't shoot. Karen says that what Leo's doing benefits the Sea Wave Sword, but he should be crushing them with head-on strength. The commander asks if he really thinks he'll get out safely, and Karen asks his name. He says his name is Michael Knox. Karen says he's not going to kill him, then stabs Michael in the knee, making him scream. The archers are too terrified to do anything. Karen laughs, telling him to order his men to drop their weapons. Michael yells it, and they start doing so. Karen says he's obedient, and he likes that. Michael says he can't believe they lost to a pair of brats, but once the rest come, even he won't be able to deal with it, even if he's of house Reston. Karen says it sounds like he's still hoping, asking if he's really counting on the Black Wizards, and if he thinks his family would send only 2 kids. Leo finishes with the skeletons, and then there's an explosion. Karen says of course they'd have a guardian, and thanks to the time he wasted, it seems his master captured the Black Wizard, as we see her carrying his head, looking furious. Leo calls out to her, and she yells at both of them, saying they missed the most crucial evidence, and that the mission will result in failure. Karen kicks Michael off the top, saying surely she liked the method though. She says charging straight into the enemy's jaws is something her brother would do, and for that she'll give him credit, since it's fitting for their house. She throws the Black Wizard's head forward, saying that staging a sudden hostage act will cost him points. Michael looks down at his friend's head, and she asks why he pulled a hostage stunt to begin with. He says they wanted to strike where least expected, since no one would imagine nobles taking hostages. She agrees with that much, saying she's never seen one like him, that he's a lunatic. He thanks her. Michael just wonders if they're even nobles. She says they should return to Lord Bellis's castle, as she has many questions for him. He agrees. Michael once more stares at his friend's head, calling them insane. Some of the soldiers from the barony find where the prisoners are being kept. A man runs in, asking for his daughter Isabel, and she falls into his arms. He starts apologizing for not being able to protect her. We see Karen and Ura watching this. She was so scared, while Ura stares at the reunion. Karen asks him if he's feeling guilty now. He says that he is. Karen says it's a bit too early for that, since being thrown into the Baron's prison like his comrades might have been a better deal. Ura asks how, and Karen says he'll be going to the fortress along with his boss Michael, who is still on the ground with his arm cut off. Ura asks why him, and even Sabina asks if it's really fine not to tie him up. Karen looks up at Ura, saying that for now they'll need someone to help transport him to the fortress, as he's too injured to walk on his own. She thinks about it, as Karen tells Ura not to let his guard down too much. He says okay. Some of the men ask if Ura will be punished too. Karen says yes, since he is technically a bandit as well. One of the men says it may be bold to speak up, but Ura took genuine care of the prisoners when they were there. He even secretly brought medicine to the sick, and gave food to those who were starving, so they should show him mercy. Sabina asks Karen what he thinks, and Karen says they should at least consider leniency, since he helped guide them to the hideout. Ura gets excited, saying he'll serve him loyally for the rest of his life. Karen says they already told him not to let his guard down. Leo tells him he has to come check something out. Karen asks what it is, and Leo tells him to look himself. A barrel is opened, and Karen asks if this is what he thinks it is. Inside is a magic stone. A lot of the people of the barony are excited to see the bandits taken away. Leo says Karen should know Rohan will probably throw a banquet for this. Leo starts waving at the citizens, but Karen doesn't say anything. He asks if he's ignoring him. Karen says that's expected. There was a reason such a large group was hiding in the remote mountains of this barony to begin with, but the Baron's family probably didn't even know there was a magic stone mine in their territory. He doesn't know the quality yet, but just the existence of a mine could bring in a hefty profit. Leo wonders what the hell he's scheming now, and Sabina says Rohan has come to greet him. Rohan welcomes them all as the rest take the prisoners to the dungeons. Sabina says she'll take the leader of the bandits, asking if he's okay with that. Rohan says of course, but he'd like to request something. She says she's only here as a guardian, so he should speak with her students. He says since they prepared a modest banquet, he wants to eat and talk. Karen apologizes, but says they need to head to the fortress right away, even though Leo looks excited to eat. Rohan asks if that's really so, saying it's about the payment for the commission. Their territory doesn't have the means to pay the fortress, so he'd like to request a deferral. Karen starts to look greedy, and Leo says he can't believe he has that look again. Karen says he was wondering why the bandits chose to settle in this barony of all places, and he figured it out. Rohan asks what he's talking about, and Karen says to think about it. The Belisbarani is remote, with no local specialties. It's literally just a village. Rohan starts to hold back his frustration, and Karen says sure enough, the one thing they were after was something else. He pulls out the magic stone, and Rohan looks surprised. Karen says these are in their territory, asking if he knew. He says no, he had no idea there was a mine anywhere close. Karen says if that's the case, he'd like to make a proposal. Rohan asks what it is, and Karen says he wants to co-develop the mine with a fortress, on the condition the fortress provides initial capital and security. Rohan asks if this brat even knows what he's saying, since even setting aside development, just the cost of storage and maintaining guards is astronomical, but having someone of the Reston family hold a stake could benefit them greatly. He calculates it would be worth it, but asks who gave this kid the idea he can negotiate something this big on his own. Karen says he'll have to report back, but if the project goes through, the Fortress Knights could be stationed here, boosting their economy and solving defense problems in one go. Rohan asks what share of the mine the Duke's house would want. Karen says that's something he'd discuss with his father, since a kid like him isn't qualified for the finer details. Rohan says he'll discuss it with his aides too, and Karen says he'll be in contact. Sabina just looks proud of him. On the way back, Karen says he has a question for her. He asks why she said things that might get complicated at the bandit hideout. She says it's because of that black wizard. Karen asks if it's because he wasn't ordinary. She says his name was Ted Delarda, a Class 2 wanted criminal in the Empire, a 6th Circle Dark Mage. This catches Karen off guard. She says he was a Class 2 fugitive, running wild within the Imperial territories alongside deserters from the Southern Kingdom, and yet Karen and Leo were too busy dealing with small fry to notice something important. She says people only grow stronger by fighting powerful opponents, and had he defeated the Black Mage first, he wouldn't have wasted time. That's why she considers this a failure, and he should remember it. Leo wonders why he feels left out. Sabina calls to him, saying he actually did better than she expected, and since it must have been his first time facing undead, he should be proud. He starts to look happy he's not left out, and she says he needs more confidence, and maybe a new haircut. Back at the fortress, Heinrich says the Lord has finally returned, and welcomes him back. Halo asks if there was anything unusual. He says the knights deployed to the west have returned, and that Karen and Leo have returned from their mission accompanied by Sabina. One of the butlers runs over, yelling. Halo asks what the situation is. He says it's a letter from the Imperial Palace. Halo wonders what it is, since the Emperor didn't say anything before he left the capital. He reads it, and is surprised, as a train is heading to their city. It turns out the Emperor is personally inviting Karen to the capital. As Karen is about to arrive back in the dukedom, the train arrives, and Ura steps out first, carrying Michael. Ura asks if this is the fortress. It's huge, and Michael says that surely he doesn't believe what that brat actually said. He'll soon be thrown into prison as well. Now he should listen carefully. If they want to survive, they must take advantage of a moment when the guards are distracted. Ura punches him in the face, telling him to shut up. Leo and Karen just watch. Ura reminds him that he said he was useless, and that he should just be killed. Pale says that it still is as noisy as ever around him, and Karen turns, excited to see his father. Pale asks Sabina if she's been well, and she says more or less, and it looks like he has been summoned too. He says that it seems like it's because of what he did in Baron Bellis's domain, and it's quite the headache. He says that he looks pleased though, and Leo bows, asking him how he's been. Pale says that he heard he distinguished himself on the Baron's lands, and that word even reached him, and that his elder brother must have heard too, so he'll surely be delighted, also reminding him to get his hair cut. Leo says of course. Pale says they must all be tired, so they should head up. As they start walking away, Sabina tells Pale that the Empire's situation seems unstable, asking if he knows anything, and he says that the so-called powerful families apart from theirs are quickly uniting, centered around Duke Salmon and Marquis Diaz. He says that Halo had planned to meet several families in the capital to grasp the situation, but it seems he cancelled everything after talks with the Emperor failed to bring satisfactory results. Both Duke Salmon and Marquis Diaz overthrew the old Emperor, and raised the current one to the throne, and now hold real power in the realm, and the reason that her brother decided to step back from central authority after the Empire's fall was because he judged it best for the Empire's future, yet to be treated like this now sure is laughable. She says that it looks like the age of peace is coming to an end, and Pale agrees, saying that whether they like it or not, it seems like it's time for their family to move on as well. She says perhaps what his son did may bring them the greatest benefit, because with a reasonable amount of pretext they can now station troops in their family's lands, and expand their influence, and that his son sure is interesting to carry out something so advantageous for the family at the perfect timing. Pale gets embarrassed, saying that the flattery sure is nice, and she reminds him that she wasn't praising him though. Karen and them head back, and Zeres says that was a good job, and he heard what happened, about the group of deserters. Karen says the one being carried is their leader, and Zeres says that he'll interrogate him while he still breathes, he'll extract every bit of information he can. Hans then asks who the one carrying the bandit is, and Karen says he's a bandit too, and they should take him along as well. Ura starts to get scared, and Karen tells him that he's an informant, so handle him lightly, and release him afterward, as he's going to use him as a personal servant. He then says that he's going to go inside, and rest, but Zeres says he can't, since his mission isn't over yet. He must file a report, as it's to reassess the mission, and improve future performance. Karen asks if they have to write one separately, and he says that they can just do it together. Karen says this is good, since he did all the work, and Leo can handle the report. Leo says it would be faster if they worked together though, and Karen tells him to think carefully. Once submitted, his dad will also read the report, which means they should highlight his achievements in the report, that way it's his chance to earn some favor with his father. Leo says that sounds right, but if his name appears too often, it'll have the opposite effect. Zeres gets annoyed, and tells Hans to take the prisoners away. Sabina then throws the head of the dark mage at Zeres, and she says as for her report, the boys can hand it in under their names. She and Karen leave, leaving Leo to do all the work. Leo asks where he's going, and he says he has to go to the training hall, since he's reached the 4th star, he can use it all on his own. Zeres says that if he's heading straight to the training hall the moment he returns, how can anyone look at him, and believe he's merely a 13-year-old boy? Back to the meeting, Halo says that he summoned them all late at night for a very important reason. Zeres says that he's brought the item that was requested, and Halo says this is a piece of hide taken from a monster that appeared in the western Ferromet Plains. At first glance, it looks ordinary, but this dark energy within it is no mere force, it is the evil emperor's black ether. All of his sons look surprised, and Pale says that the evil emperor has long been dead, and a black ether dwells in the monsters, but Halo cuts them off, saying that there are only two possibilities, either it is but remnants of the emperor's lingering will, or else the evil emperor still lives. Either way, his conclusion is this cannot be unrelated to the events within the empire. Moreover, word of what happened in Belis's land seems to have reached His Majesty's ears, and the emperor has summoned Karen to the capital. Ringo doesn't look happy about this, and Pale is just surprised. Halo says that he cannot send him there alone, and he'll send Leo, and some of the knights as well. Of course, he'll get his opinion first. If he refuses, he won't force him to go. Pales asks if that won't cause any problems, and Halo says it's fine, since he's still just a child, but more importantly, he must hear exactly why he made such a deal with Belis's son, and that he needs to bring Karen here right now, as we see him training his mana. As he continues his training, he asks Zeres when he arrived. Zeres says not long ago, and Karen says that he heard the only one besides his direct family allowed in is him, but he doesn't recall him ever entering the laboratory, asking if it's something urgent. Zeres nods, saying soon he'll likely have to go to the capital. Zeres tells him the head of the family has summoned him to the family council, so he'll hear the details from him. Right before they enter the room, the butler opens the door, and Halo asks if he enjoyed his first mission. Karen says yes, and Halo says the reason he called him here is because of what happened in the barony of Belis, and that he didn't have the right to represent their house in business, so why did he act independently with them? Karen wonders if this is more for scolding than praising, and Halo asks if it ever occurred to him that his arrogant behavior was a grave discourtesy to the Belis family. Karen says no, he merely made a singular deal with Belis, and the Baron's son accepted his proposal of his own will, and moreover he judged there to be something far more important than the formal etiquette of nobles. Halo asks what that was, what could be more important to a noble than courtesy? Karen thinks about the right answer, and says that it's the honor of the family. Halo looks like that's a good response, saying that considering the value of the deal he could have boasted of his own achievement, yet instead he put the family's benefit before himself, and stepped back. Halo says that's excellent tact, and the joy of not being removed from the family and simply being successful is icing on the cake. His uncles stare at him, and Karen says they are watching very warily, but Halo says very well. In the end, the deal he brought will be of great benefit to the house, and that Pale can handle the negotiations. As there is nothing wrong with his father shining with the merit his son brought, Pale says that he will depart for the barony at daybreak. Halo then says next, Concerning the letter from the emperor, His Majesty has summoned him, as word of him has already reached the capital. Karen says according to Zeres, even before Halo returned, the emperor's letter had already arrived, and he wonders if the emperor's intelligence network is that good. He says that he knows the current emperor is just a puppet, and it must be the powerful noble network. There is some awkward silence in the room, and Halo tells him that if he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to go. He must have realized what it would mean to head to the capital at this time. The noble houses there will surely want to confirm who he is, and it may be wiser not to draw attention, so avoiding the capital is an option. Zeres looks at Halo and wonders why his father is giving him the choice, since he doesn't have to. Karen says of course he will go, he'll even get to see his grandfather on his mother's side after a long while, but he wonders if he's going alone, saying that Leo also carried out the mission with him. Halo says that if he goes, Leo will accompany him, and Han's squad will escort him. Karen asks why, if his grandfather is there, does he need an escort? Halo says he shouldn't flatter himself, they're not assigned because he's special, it's because no one knows what trouble he might cause next. Some time later at Belis's barony, they're wrapping up the negotiations. Pale thanks them for their efforts, and asks Rohan if his father is also aware of these terms. Rohan says of course, as his father agreed. The mine shares will be 80% Reston and 20% Belis, and since magic crystal stones are so profitable, even a small share ensures considerable wealth. But the condition of giving 5% of that 20 to Karen and Leo is puzzling, and pretty unfavorable for the Belis family. Granted, the two did a good job fulfilling their request, but for a mere commission fee, that seems excessive. For a top graduate of the Imperial Academy to make such a decision, that is too great of a reward for a commission fee. Rohan says it's to win the favor of the two while they are still young. Pale says he's not even trying to hide it. Rohan continues, saying he's making an investment in the two who will one day lead the fortress. Pale says he's shameless, but he respects it, and that it's a bold decision, that Baron Belis is fortunate to have such an outstanding son. Rohan laughs, saying he's nowhere near as brilliant as Pale, of course. Then he says it's time for them to hear the children's opinions. Karen, of course, is money hungry, and Leo just wonders why he's grinning like that again. Karen says that he'll gladly accept, that they can continue to build a strong bond from here, and that it's truly an honor to work with such a great house. Back at the station, Leo tells Karen he has a question, asking how they're going to split the shares they got. Karen says naturally he'll take 9, and Leo will only get 1. Leo asks if he's really taking that much, and Karen asks why he's surprised. He says that they've been getting along well lately, so how could he say something like that? Leo doesn't even want to push back, and says that of course he'll get 9, he just wanted a little more so he can afford an actual haircut. Karen tells him to remember what happens if he changes his mind later. Pale watches this, saying that when they were younger, they used to fight and bicker all the time, but now they've become inseparable. He's only seeing what he wants to see. Leo says he can't believe he's going to the capital, that he's only heard rumors, and that he doesn't actually know anything, asking what he should do. Karen tells him not to make such a fuss, and Leo says they're about to meet the emperor, so it's only natural to have a little bit of a fuss. He says they'll be able to go to social parties, and there are lots of beauties in the capital. Karen sighs, and Sabina says the capital, Dacus, is a very fun place, with lots of people, and a lot of them are strong. Leo asks what she's doing all the way up here, and she says it's going to be a very good experience. She says she came to celebrate their first mission, asking where their wine goblets are. Karen asks why she's looking for wine goblets in a 13-year-old's room, and she says as long as it can hold wine, any cup will do. She throws each of them a cup, and she says that Karen drinking and stealing wine every day is one thing, but asks Leo if he's ever drank anything. He says that he's drank a couple times because of Karen, and she sighs, saying he made him an accomplice. Leo says it's better for them if they got scolded together, and she pours him a drink, saying that since it's poured by the master, he shouldn't hesitate, and that both of them have grown splendidly, and Karen thanks her. She then says that 3 years have passed, since she promised to train him, and that it's disappointing she won't be able to see the havoc he will cause in the capital. Leo says he heard she'll soon return to the North Sea, and he starts to cry, asking if they won't be able to see each other again. She says with that much sentimentality, there's no way he'll be able to even talk to a woman in the capital. He gets embarrassed, and she says if he does go to parties, it would be best not to go with Karen. Leo asks why, and she says that considering his looks, talent, and silver tongue, surely he can guess what will happen. Leo realizes that his haircut is really making him lose some aura, and he puts his hand on Karen's shoulder, saying that he should ruin his chances at marriage. Karen says that it's not him doing it, but that awful haircut, and he tells him to stop yapping, and just drink. Leo agrees, and as the night continues, we see Halo drinking as well. Whole family are alcoholics. Pale knocks on the door, and he tells him to come in. Pale asks if he called for him, and Halo says yes. He heard he wrapped up negotiations with Belis well, and for them to hand over their share to the boys sure is surprising. Pale says it seems the young baron's opinion was strongly reflected in his actions, and he called it an investment for their future. Halo says Belis's son sure is clever, and in any case, this is good, having reliability is never bad. The matter concerning Belis will be entrusted to Pale, and he says he'll do his best. Halo pours him a drink. Pale thanks him, and says his father is a man bearing with praise, so there must be another reason he called him. Most likely, it's something to do with Karen's trip. Halo says as he knows, His Majesty has never summoned anyone but him directly, and in that sense, Karen being called to the capital is very unusual. Pale says he knew what this was about, and Halo says in this private audience he saw it again, that His Majesty had a very fearful gaze towards him. It comes from the fear that, since he overthrew the evil emperor, he might overthrow him as well, and that's why he thinks perhaps another influence played a role. Pale asks if he thinks it's political, and Halo says yes. Pale says considering the political situation in the capital, where powerful houses are rallying, couldn't he have just refused His Majesty's request, but for some reason he didn't. Halo says that's correct. Pale asks if he's allowed to know why. Halo laughs, saying that he wants to know the measure of Karen. This catches Pale off guard, and Halo says that he was chosen by the ancestors' blade, and like it or not, he's destined to stand at the center of their family. Not only that, as a member of Reston he will inevitably face checks from outside forces, and he will continue to face countless threats. That's why he didn't refuse the request. If he is to shoulder the future of their house, he must be able to endure it. He asks Pale if he's worried. Pale starts chugging his drink, so much so that he starts coughing it up. Halo laughs a little. Pale says that he wants to speak bluntly, and that he really trusts his son. Halo stares at him, smiling, looking proud. He says that sure is a good answer. The next day, Sabina has a horse ready for them. Zaraz asks if she's really not going to say goodbye to the young masters. She says it's fine, as she shared drinks with them and had a good time last night. Zaraz asks why everybody's stealing his liquor, and she says besides, they'll be busy leaving for the capital today, so it's better for her to leave quietly, and she'll look forward to the day they meet again. He says that he'll keep the wine shelf stocked until then. As she starts to depart, she looks up towards Karen's window, and he bows to her. She smiles, saying she'll see him next time. So she left, back to the North Sea, which is like a home to her. She tells Karen that he is always welcome to visit, and she'll be waiting with good wine. He says for her to leave with only a letter behind. Now that she's left, even his uncles might start making a move. Instantly, Tails says that his aunt has left as well. Karen says that speaking of the devil, and he shall appear. Heinrich asks if all of the young masters' luggages have been loaded. They say yes. They continue yapping with their clothes. Karen asks Zaraz why they have to make such a fuss about them leaving. Zaraz says of course, since the young masters will be meeting His Majesty as representatives of the family, they need to present themselves the best they can. Karen says he agrees, but asks why the hell Han's squad is coming with them. Zaraz says it's for their own safety, and Han says more like because he's worried Karen will cause trouble. Karen tells him to be quiet, saying with so many nuisances around, it's going to be very annoying. Back to when Tails approached him, they greeted each other. Tails asks if he's going to the capital, and Karen says that he is, and Tails says that he actually has a favor from him. Karen asks what it is, and Tails says he hopes he won't behave in the capital the way he did in the fortress. He knows well enough what he means, so he won't say more. Karen says okay, that he's pretty much just telling him outright that he's been watching him. Tails says there are many enemies in the capital who want to tear their family apart, so if he even gives them an excuse, he'll punish him personally. Karen thanks him for the words, saying that he'll live up to his expectations. Tails says that's good, and that he should return safe and sound. Karen says okay, and watches him leave, and he laughs, saying that he would punish him, asking if he really thinks he can suppress him just because he's the first prince, and he'll make that arrogant face twist in pain, telling him just to wait for the future. Back to the present, preparations are now ready. Karen tells Hans that if he causes trouble, he won't let it slide. Hans says his Mr. Clean is making a photo finish, and he apologizes for being late, thanking Karen for giving him another chance. Karen says the truth is he's bringing him to the capital just to throw him in prison, and he tells him he better not let his guard down. Asks if he's serious, and Hans starts to get a little notification, saying that they're all aboard. Hans tells Zeres they're gonna be heading out now, and Zeres tells both of them to make sure not to cause trouble in the capital, and Karen says anyone who sees them will think they're delinquents. Zeres says that a cracked bowl leaks inside as well as outside, but it's time for them to leave. Before they do, they hear Pale calling out to him, and he barely made it in time. He says that he didn't know he was here at the fortress, and Pale says that his grandfather called him here, but more than that, he wanted to see him once more before he left, also that his grandfather on his mother's side is looking forward to his arrival in the capital. Karen says that he can't wait to see him too, and he bets he's prepared a lot of gifts. Pale smiles, putting his hand on his son's shoulder, telling him to please return safely, and that he better not cause too much trouble. As they're about to leave, we see Tails hearing the sound of the train, and he looks out his window, saying that this means they're leaving. Somebody informs him that they have obtained information that the second prince's wife is plotting something in the capital, but he says it's not like he needs to get involved in this. The train leaves, and Karen says it was about time, asking Hans how long it takes to get to the capital. He says it's about 6 hours, and they'll be going through the Tabe Autonomous Territory. Karen asks what that is, and Leo asks if that's the unusual city where commoners directly elect their mayor, and unlike farming, commerce and industry are more developed there. Karen asks if that's the place where the most money circulates in the empire. Hans says exactly, which is why money equals class there, because they exercise influence in the empire with their vast capital, but they are also often severely checked by the lords of other regions. Karen says he recalls learning that sometimes serfs escape the tyranny of wicked lords and flee to the territory, but Hans informs him that they are friendly with their fortress, sometimes they even commission large-scale requests from their knights. Karen says if he gets the chance he'd like to visit them sometime. The announcer on the train tells them they'll soon be entering the territory, and Karen says that maybe he'll sneak away after the schedule's done. Leo says he would like to go too, but then he starts to hear a sound, looking over, seeing his sword reacting to something, and for it to react means there is danger nearby. He wonders if Tails or Ringo planted someone among the entourage, but he says there's no way they're that foolish, and he realizes what it must mean. He tells Hans to contact the territory immediately. Hans asks why, and he says there's no time to explain, they need to alert the others to prepare for attacks. He then starts doing so, and Karen says if the threat is from outside rather than inside, he wonders how they plan to attack a moving train. We see a fuse lined up on the ground, as they have a bunch of barrels of explosives set along the railroad tracks. A man raises a hand, saying it's time. As they start to light it, we see an entire group. He tells them to hurry up and get it done since they're coming, and it finally starts to light. He tells them all to brace for an explosion, and the train runs straight into it, and the explosion is so impactful all the birds in the nearby forest flee. Back at the Tabe territory, they were talking about how the National Tax Service is really coming down on them. One of the dudes said that's because he got caught laundering money, and while they start arguing, both sides tell the mayor that he needs to speak up on this. The mayor, though, just says that he shouldn't have come in the first place, and he should have just retired after being the Minister of Finance, and he can't believe he accepted his position in the first place. He says that he thought it was an attractive city where opportunities were open to everyone regardless of status. In this place where commoners, merchants, and noble merchants clash every single day, it's just a complete mess of a city. A man then runs in, calling out to him, then he runs over whispering into his ear. He tells him that he may go. The other people at the table ask what was so urgent that they needed to interrupt their meeting, asking if it's related to their tax investigation. He says that it is not something as measly as that. As he strikes a match, they ask what he's talking about, wondering why he doesn't care about the taxes, then they ask if maybe it was cancelled. He says not exactly, but it was more like he told the tax investigators to screw off, and 5 minutes ago, the capital-bound train departing from the Reston house exploded, and he heard that the Grand Duke's grandchildren were on board. They ask him to explain more, and he asks if they really don't understand, as it means that they're pretty much all as good as dead now because of what happened to his grandson, as Karen's coming back too. He sits up, seeing Hans. Hans asks if he's okay, and Karen says that he's fine, as we see him bandaging Leo. Hans then asks for a report on the situation. They tell him that there was a total of 11 people injured. One is severe, and only the other 2 are lightly injured, and the severe injury is Dale. One of the other dudes says that there are 2 fatalities in their car, and Karen says the situation is so bad that even Ura is responding. Karen asks Hans if he knows where they're at right now, and Hans says that they're about 10 kilometers from the Tabe territory, and they contacted them before the young masters woke up, so they should be mobilizing a unit by now, and that he and the squad will buy time, so they should both run as far as they can. He asks Karen if he understands what he's saying, but Karen is just staring at his blade because it's reacting again, and he realizes that means that they're close by. Then he spots their feet outside the window. He tells Hans that he's sorry, but that's not going to be possible. Hans asks why not, and Karen says that they're the ones who destroyed the Emperor's precious railway, and they have committed an act no different from treason, and there's no point in them running from scum like that. He then asks Leo if he can still fight, and Leo says that he can, but his hair got worse from the accident. Karen instantly cuts the legs off one of the dudes, saying that there's only one choice then. The other attackers see the dude fall onto the ground, and the guy who's got his leg cut off looks up at Karen glaring down at him. Then he sends him flying with the next attack, saying that they just have to get rid of them all here. As he, Hans, and Leo exit the carriage, he says that there's more than he thought. The rest of the knights now get off the train, as they now all having a crazy WWE stare down. Hans says that they're all at least all 3-star level, and Karen says that he can tell, and the dude at the front is at least 6-star. The attacker tells him that he needs to drop his weapon and surrender, and Karen can instantly tell that his voice is being altered by magic. The man continues, saying that if he cooperates quietly, they'll let the knights and servants go. Karen then informs them that their goal must be to capture him alive, asking if he knows what that means. Hans says surely he's not thinking of doing what he thinks he is, and Karen says of course he is, as he runs forward. He says that means they can't kill him, and he can attack them for free. Hans and Leo just both look at him like he's crazy, and the attackers walk up to meet him. Karen cuts down one of them in an instant, and the rest start to charge in, but so do the knights. As everybody's fighting their own opponent, Karen tells them that they need to quickly charge into the back line, and get rid of them all at once. But he sees that the assassins are a little hesitant, and he asks if he should be going instead. The assassins start talking about how this wasn't in the conditions, and the leader tells them to step aside, as he'll be the one to take care of this personally. Karen says that it's about time for him to step in, but Hans runs in front of him, which catches him off guard. Hans tells him that he's a dangerous opponent, and that he needs to step back, but the assassins tell Hans that he's rushing to his death, and Hans says that they'll have to wait and find out if that's the case. Hans leaps up into the air, and the assassin readies his blade. As they start clashing, sparks fly. The assassin realizes something, as he instantly deflects the blade, causing Hans to hit the floor. Hans as well starts to understand what's going on, as he just instantly deflected his attack. He says based on the movement of this, he now understands that this 6-star is the knight of the Pajar Sultanate within the empire named Shian Hakimi. The empire and the Sultanate are bound by a non-aggression pact, but also why Karen of all people? The Sultanate and the rest in ducal house have no beef. He has to find out directly after all. The tides of battle have now turned in their favor, as the young masters are holding their ground so well. Maybe they can cut Leo's hair now. Hakimi starts to charge in, putting Hans on the defensive, asking if he really has the time to be distracted. Hans tells him that his formation has already collapsed, and calls out his government ID. He then starts to release his aura, sending him flying backwards, resetting the tempo of the fight. Hans warns him that resistance is meaningless, and he needs to surrender. Hakimi says that he now sees that his group has fallen, and Hans tells him that if he surrenders, at least his life will be spared, and there is no need to die on foreign soil. Hakimi tells him that he has no thought of persuading those who refuse to understand, thus he will only fulfill his mission. His eyes instantly turn black and red, and Hans says this is caused from burst vessels. As his aura starts to take a different hue, Hans tells us that it's called mana backlash, meaning that he has no intention of turning back alive. At this rate, not only will capturing him be impossible, but the young masters are both in danger, and thus he lets his mana run rampant as well, as he starts to prepare to receive the attack fully. Hakimi gets closer, and Hans resolves himself to let his mana burst, as his eyes turn bright blue. Karen, though, tells him that he's disappointed. Karen says that he thought he came along to keep him from making trouble, but it seems like he's the one doing that, wondering if he's already given up on his role. Hakimi turns, surprised that he's on the attack, wondering what he's doing, and Karen says that he'll do as he pleases, as he charges in, sending Hakimi's arm flying. Hakimi then distances himself from him, and tells Karen that he's a monster. Karen asks if that's supposed to be praise, saying that he'll take it, but then he notices that his blade is starting to resonate once more, and he says that means that there is still a threat remaining. He asks Hakimi exactly what he is scheming, and Hans sits there staring, processing the situation. Hakimi says that he bears no grudge, and he's sorry, and Karen just asks what he's apologizing for. As his mana starts to grow even more rampant, Hans instantly sees what's going on, telling all the squad members to protect Leo. Leo just sits there staring, looking clueless as hell, and all the men go to jump to protect him. Hans does the exact same thing to Karen, as he causes him to fall to the floor. He asks Hans what he's doing by this, and Hans tells him that it's a self-destruction spell, and that it's because of his incompetence. As the mana continues to swirl violently, we see Hakimi's body starting to collapse, followed by a massive explosion, one that puts the earlier one to complete shame, and Hans begins to shield Karen with his body. Karen then hears a voice in his head calling him foolish, saying that since he let them taste the fresh blood of knights after so long, they'll do their part. If he doesn't want his eyeballs bursting, then he needs to close them tightly. Eventually he comes to, and starts waking up Hans. He asks how long he's going to keep laying there, and kicks him. Hans says that he threw himself to protect him, asking where the respect is, and Karen says he never asked him to save him. He then hears the voice once more, saying if not for them, it wouldn't have ended this way. He then says that now that he thinks about it, he wonders what it was coming from, and looks down at his blade, as the voice continues, saying that he probably has been reduced to nothing but scraps of flesh, and he should be grateful. Karen ignores it, as Guillotine continues, asking if he's even listening. Karen just surprised that a sword can talk, and says that it's talking a little too much. The thing is, he didn't know this was an ego sword, and we see an example of how big the second explosion was compared to the first. The soldiers start helping each other out of the wreckage, and Karen's still just hung up on the ego sword thing, and he says that he's heard that blacksmiths who go mad forge blades out of souls that can talk to you. Guillotine says that if he compares him to a demon sword one more time, he'll cut his head off. Karen says that if he'd cut his head off over something that trivial, why did he even save him? Guillotine calls him pathetic, saying that if they didn't waste magic power saving him from the explosion just now, they'd already have taken his head off. Another carriage starts to roll up, and Hans wonders if it's more enemies, but Karen says that they're definitely not. Guillotine says that all of the magic that was stored up is gone, and they're exhausted. Karen asks if the only way for them to absorb magic power is by cutting down enemies, and Guillotine says that if he wishes, he could have also absorbed the magic in his blood. A knight introduces himself as the captain of the vigilante corps of the Tabe territory, named Hirai. Karen says that if he's craving his master's blood, he's a demon sword after all. Hans introduces himself, and Guillotine says that he's going back to the scabbard. He can't talk to him anymore. Karen says that's perfect, because he needs to stop yapping. He then sheathes him as Hans introduces Karen to Hirai. Hirai says that the Tabe territory feels responsible for dragging him into such an unfortunate event. By order of the mayor, they are here to escort the members of the Great Dukedom safely. Karen says that he sees, and in that case, they have many injured, so they'll be counting on him. As they start hitching a ride in the carriage, we see Karen sitting in the back, drenched in blood. Hans says that he wants to double-check that he doesn't think they should just return to the fortress. The vigilantes and knights are still investigating the site, but who knows what results will come out and when, and it's too early to assume the danger has passed. Karen says that it's fine. They already contacted Zeres before departing, and Zeres should be on his way soon, and that Hans's problem is that he thinks too much. The Imperial Guard from the capital must have departed too, so not to worry. More importantly, the one who blew himself up, he wants to know if Hans knew him. Hans then tells him that he was a 6-star knight of the Pajar Sultanate named Hakimi. Karen says that the Pajar Sultanate is a neighboring nation beyond the Desert of Silence in the Eastern Empire, and he wonders if the non-aggression pact is finally wavering, saying that this is becoming more and more complicated. Hans says that true, relations between the Empire and the Pajar Sultanate had been deteriorating, but this wasn't the sort of stunt they'd usually pull. Karen says still, the mere fact that such a thing occurred is reason enough for war, asking Leo if he agrees. Leo says that he does, but the truth is, he actually wasn't listening, as we see his hand shaking, holding a uniform soaked in blood. He says that he can't get them to stop. Karen says he understands. It was his first time cutting someone down, so no wonder. Taking a life is something that someone doesn't really get used to, but he must overcome it, as that's what it means to live. The guard peeks into the window, saying that the kid's hair is fucked up, and Karen says that it is, and then gets a look at the city saying that it sure looks nice, and Hans agrees. The mayor then welcomes them to the territory, saying that it's such a relief that they made it here safely. The territory will do everything in its power to uncover the mastermind behind this incident, and of course, they will fully cooperate with House Reston's investigation. He says also, but Karen cuts him off, saying that he knows that they had nothing to do with the attack. Hans says that's right, so the mayor can rest easy, and we learn that his name is Gren. Hans says that he seems quite different from back when he was the Minister of Finance. Gren tells him not to mention it, as he knows it too, and he regrets accepting this damn seat. He then apologizes for rambling in front of noble guests, and Karen tells him to speak freely, as he'd rather not hear stiff formalities from an elder. Gren asks how he could speak casually to the blood of the great dukedom. Karen tells him to show his sincerity by kneeling then. Gren says that he misspoke, and he'll gladly accept his kindness. Karen says that's good, and they should move somewhere else to continue the conversation. Karen says that they can do that. We see him pouring Gren a glass of wine, saying that they were attacked by some smugglers, because the attackers didn't use the power of the city, and they were attacked not by magic power but explosives that destroy the railway, and that he knows that such explosives can be obtained without going through the Armaments Procurement Agency. Gren says that's true. Karen says that the Armaments Procurement Agency is under the Empire's strict supervision, so stealing its stockpiles of explosives is nearly impossible. But what if the explosives were smuggled in from outside the Empire? For example, explosives manufactured in the Pajar Sultanate? Gren realizes he's right. Only the Empire and the Pajar Sultanate are capable of producing high-grade explosives. Karen says that if some merchants of Tabe are involved in such smuggling, that would put him in a very difficult position. Gren is surprised that his reasoning is so sharp, and says that the likelihood of that is high. Karen says that if he didn't agree, he could be branded an accomplice, and with idiots running smuggling rings, it's too easy to be scapegoated. He tells Gren to keep one thing in mind. Gren asks what it is. Then Karen tells him that this incident has harmed both the fortress and its knights. Gren realizes he's being cornered, and he says that to be entangled with Reston, who repays favors tenfold and grudges 100-fold if he doesn't cooperate, he's finished. For now, he wants to change the subject, and he asks Karen how his father is. Karen asks if he knows his father, and Gren says of course, he's on brotherly terms with his father after all. Karen says that the sudden theatrics confirm he's a politician indeed. Gren sweats nervously, but says performance is the most important thing for humans. Then Gren's assistant barges in, saying that they finally got a call from the capital, and the barber to fix that kid's hair is on the way, but also, they sent people. Gren says it's about time the Imperial Guard departed. The man tells him that it's not only the Imperial Guard, but the Commissioner of the National Tax Service himself has departed, leading Special Division 1. Gren grows worried, because he's a man called the Demon King. His name is Commissioner Gale Paratoni of the National Tax Service, and he asks if Gale is really coming all this way on his own. He asks Karen if he already knew about this too, and Karen says yes, as his god-grandfather adores him. He'll put in all efforts to save his grandson. Elsewhere in the Dominion, people are out on the town, and they see a bunch of armed soldiers walking in, and in the back, there's none other than Gale himself. People in the alleyway spot them walking by, saying they didn't think he'd come so quickly. This is because this involves a member of his family, after all. Back at the mayor's office, they're asking why there's a sudden tax audit, and why it had to start tonight. There's no way that he expects them to undergo an audit without any preparation. Even if he's a puppet mayor, he should have at least bought them some time, and they can't deal with Special Division 1 of all people. Gren says that these bastards are acting like this even after all the leeway he's given them, wondering if they really don't understand the gravity of the situation. Karen tells them all that the mayor is correct. Not only did they destroy the railroad tracks, which are the property of the emperor, but the grandsons of Duke Reston, and personnel from the fortress were attacked, and it was done with explosives believed to have been smuggled through the Merchant Guild. Surely, everybody understands now what's going on. The merchants realize that they're going to be investigated, and one of them says that what he was trying to say was that they should have had time to prepare. Karen asks for the name of the dude speaking, and he says that his name is Viscount Humour of the Humour Merchant Guild. Karen says he sees, and he'll be sure to pass his name along to his grandfather, the Commissioner of the National Tax Service. They tell him to reconsider. Then the door cracks open as Special Division 1 is entering. Everybody's surprised to see Gale, and Gale says that as of this moment, they will commence a tax audit of the merchant guilds. The National Tax Service has been tipped off about circumstances of illicit wealth accumulation through smuggling and tax evasion. His Majesty the Emperor has ordered a thorough investigation. Karen says he truly is someone who suits a soldier's uniform more than a civil servant's. Leo asks Hans if Division 1 is really that scary, and Hans says that Division 1 is the department that deals with large merchant guilds and nobles, and since they deal with such high-profile figures, they can mobilize the Imperial Guard. Leo says that he guesses it's terrifying since you could get beaten for not paying your taxes. Gale then walks over, saying it's been 3 years, asking Karen if he's been well. Karen says yes, telling his grandfather he's happy to see him. His grandfather asks if he's sure he doesn't need treatment, and Karen says that he's fine. Gale asks if he has anybody in mind, and Karen says no. Gale says surely it's not a family matter. Karen says that his uncles would never have left a trace. On the other hand, the ones who planned this left traces for all to see, as if they wanted them to conclude that it was the work of the Pajar Sultanate, and they have no intention of hiding their identity. Gale pats his head, saying that surely he wants to find the culprits and condemn them himself, but as his grandfather, he's against it. It's not that he doesn't know of his talents, but the world is vast and full of strong people. Besides, there are still threats directed at him lurking here, so they should just stay put and go to the capital tomorrow morning. As His Majesty, the Emperor has also commanded it. The adults will take care of this matter. Karen says of course, and laughs, and says that he'll stay put right here. His grandfather, though, can tell that he has no intention of keeping that promise, because Karen is releasing aura from his eyes and laughing. At the residence of one of the merchants named Oh-hyun, they're hastily leaving, putting everything on their carriage. Oh-hyun runs out, asking why they haven't departed yet, wondering what they are doing. They say they're all done now, and his wife asks if he's really not coming with them. He says not to worry, as he'll follow soon, and as they leave, they tell him to follow quickly. He says that he needed to evacuate them first. Now he sees somebody watching from the rooftop, saying that the tail is on them, and there must be no mistakes, so to continue tracking. Meanwhile, Karen is cleaning guillotine. Zeres says to think he'd be polishing his sword in the middle of the night. He wants to know if he's planning to stir up some trouble again. Karen says that he didn't expect him to start nagging the moment he arrived, and Zeres just stares at him for a second, saying that he believes the commissioners forbid him from going out. Karen asks if he's going to try to stop him too. Zeres says that he's only here to deliver the head of the house's orders, and that he'll deliver them, so listen. He says that the moment he receives this order, he needs to find the culprits and make them pay in blood for the lives they took, and show them exactly what the laws of the fortress are. Karen starts laughing, and says that he was already planning on it, and he'll gladly accept this command. Zeres says that it seems that this night will be a long one. Karen and Leo start walking through town, and Leo asks if they really have to go this far. Karen says that if they want to meet the informant, they have to go to where the black market is held. Leo says he understands it, but he wants to know why he's the one playing a servant. Karen says it's because his haircut is diabolical, but also, if a pair of noble kids wander around without their attendants, it would only raise suspicion. He says he understands, but asks again why he has to be the servant. Karen says he already told him, and they should probably look into getting him a haircut on the way there. As they continue down the alley, Leo says that this place feels unsettling. Karen tells him that if he's scared, they can turn back now. A man then says that this isn't the kind of place young lords should be visiting. If they've come here, that must mean one thing. Karen reaches for his blade, but the dude says he was sent by Zeres, and that it's an honor to serve them. He introduces himself as Julio, and he says that they should move, as a carriage has been prepared. Julio opens the door, saying that there are soundproofing artifacts installed inside so they may speak freely, and it must have been difficult coming from outside, and Karen says that he knows he's from Tabe himself. He wants to know how someone from Tabe became an informant for the Reston family. Julio says that he's only repaying the kindness Zeres showed him when he was a child. Karen says that he sees it, and they can get straight to the point. He's obtained intelligence that someone intends to attack the Reston family with smuggled explosives once they head for the capital, asking if he knows who they are. He says that they do. For money has gathered, only 2 trading companies deal with explosives circulating in the black market. He shows them both of the companies, saying that the only 2 would be these ones, Kurua and Kaligo. However, Kurua seems to have firmly established itself in Tabe, and lately, they've been withdrawing from the black market. Karen then asks, what about Kaligo? Julio says that they are a company made up of former slaves, and they'll take on any job as long as it pays. He also learned earlier today that Kaligo's members left the city. Karen says that if it's earlier today and Leo finishes his sentence, that's around the time they were attacked. Karen says that it does make them very suspicious. A group of ex-slaves will do anything for money. There's also Kurua, who's withdrawing from the black market. Leo tells them that they don't have enough time to investigate both, wondering where they should go. Karen tells them that the answer is obvious. The more desperate they are, the more reckless they'll be, and they're going to go after Caligo. Julio says that he'll escort them personally to the black market. Back to Gren's house, he asks Gale if he's sure that it's fine to leave the young master on his own. Gale says that his in-law went as far as sending him a letter to beg this of him, so he has no choice. Gale says that wolves have their own way of doing things, but still, he wants Tim to know that Karen actually asked him for a favor. He wanted him to find some excuse to hold his brother back. Without the Duke's permission, he would have moved on his own. Gale seems surprised, but Gren says not to worry, as he's already proven his skills. Gale reminds him that Karen is only 13, and Gren says that for a genius, age is just a number. This guy should be put in prison. Gale says that this is Tabe, after all, a place where danger could strike at any moment, and some companies here have even bribed central politicians to expand their power. And that he knows many of the powerful houses here are wary of House Reston, and Tabe is full of those who will do anything to win favor of those houses, as that's what this city really is. That's exactly what concerns him about this, and it's why His Majesty intervened here, to stop the empire from being run solely for the profit of such men. Gren says that he thought he'd get to enjoy his later years in peace, but it seems not. Gale says for now, they just have to wait for Karen to safely complete his investigation. Gren says there's actually one more thing he should know as well, and that Sir Mason is here in Tabe. Gale asks if he means the unyielding shield, Mason the 8-star knight. If that is true, then that's bad for them. Back to Julio, he says that they've arrived, and Karen asks if this is the only entrance. Julio says that it is, and Karen says that so in an emergency, they can just seal it off from the inside, and that's pretty chilling. He pulls up a book, activating a hidden lever, and Karen says this sure is fitting of a black market, and Julio says it's time to go down. As they do, Leo gets the feeling that they won't be getting in easily, as two guards step up to block them. They say it's been a while, asking Julio what he's doing here. Julio says that he's brought guests. They say that they know he only deals with big clients, but unfortunately, the chairman ordered that they take no clients today, and be turned back. Julio asks why, and they say it's just orders from above. Julio asks for the reason though, and they say that they don't know either, and just to leave while they're being polite. One of them starts to draw his blade, and Karen asks if he's really trying to cut them down. He then reaches for his own, telling him to try it, as he wants to see what happens. Leo asks why he's pressing him so much, but Karen continues, saying that if he's going to do it, then hurry up and draw his blade. Then, for some reason, he calls Leo by Ura's name, telling him to go for the second plan, and Leo wonders what exactly that means. The guards are to reach for their blades, and so does Leo, because there was no second plan to begin with. The guard who drew his blade first says that he has no choice, but the other one tells him to wait a second. Then Guillotine tells Karen that he's going to say this just in case, but he's rejecting the blood of bastards like them on his behalf. Karen asks how he's talking when he's not even pulled out yet, and Guillotine says that as long as he's touching the scabbard it's possible. Karen swings first, and the guard blocks the attack. Karen says it must be so convenient, and we see that the dude's sword actually got broken in half. The other guard asks what in the world he's doing, but he then freezes a bit because Leo charges straight in towards him. Julio says that it's just as he expected. This is the kind of skill he would expect from the young wolves of the Reston family. As Leo also disarms the guard, he tells Karen to give him a heads up next time he pulls something like this. Karen says that he looked like he was enjoying it. Julio says this is why Zeres had them roaming the streets of Tabe at night. Karen though continues, saying that he should get this hostage situation started. Julio calls him amazing once more. The guards ask if he really thinks he can get away with this and return safely. Julio is just surprised that a noble is taking hostages, and Karen says that's for him to worry about. The guard's chest then lights up red, and a woman tells him that's enough. She asks if they would mind stopping, as he's being too rough with her men. Karen asks if this means that the president of Caligo cares for her underlings. She says of course, as these people have been with her through the hardest times, which is why she can't let them be torn apart by some overexcited young wolf. Leo says that it seems like she knows who they are, but she welcomes them in. Karen says that's a good offer, but they don't exactly have a foundation of trust between them. So, hers are bored and will have to stay as his hostage. He says that he sure does have a fondness for taking hostages just as the rumors say, and she'll be waiting. She tells the guard named Cal to guide them well. Cal says that he'll do as the president wishes. Back to Gale. He says that if Mason is here, that means one thing, and that he is here with one person. Gren says most likely, and it would be the Emperor's bastard troublemaker, the sixth prince, Levalio. Gren asks what he's so worried about. Gale says that His Majesty personally removed Mason from the Imperial Guard and assigned him to protect His Highness, the sixth prince, but he's someone whose actions are incredibly difficult to predict. Gren says that since he's a mage, it's likely he just came here because of the wide variety of goods distributed here. Gale says he's worried about the possibility of him and Karen running into each other. Gren says surely nothing would come of it, but Gale warns him that Karen is the type of person who will make trouble even when there is none. When they enter the room, Karen is surprised to see a kid with a gold mask sitting on a couch. He puts his cup down, asking if he is Karen. He says that he knows him, but more importantly, the power he's feeling from the guard behind this man is something that belongs to a master who has achieved the 8th star, just like Zaraz and Sabina. There is only a handful of 8-star masters in the Empire, so who could he be? Leo notices it well, and Karen says that he's definitely no ordinary master. And he says surely he's not the president of Caligo. He says no, he just came to see his sister. He says if that's the case, this means he's the president's younger brother. He says they're more like sworn siblings, but it's nice to meet him. Karen says that if they're sworn siblings, in that case, he'll press his luck as he charges in using one of the fortress's techniques. Everybody's just surprised that he'd do something so crazy, and the kid starts laughing. And he tells Mason to look, as he's become a hostage, as this is none other than Levalio. He says this is more thrilling than he thought, and he knew it was a good idea to come to tape. Levalio then asks if he's going to make a death threat or some kind of ransom next, but Karen starts thinking about it, saying that he has golden hair and jet black eyes, as well as an 8th-star knight named Mason. That means that the one he is holding is the 6th prince. Levalio asks if he wants to go with overthrow of the Imperial Palace. Karen says this guy is definitely not sane, and his sister finally enters the room, saying that she sees that he swapped hostages while she was gone. We see that she's actually an elf too, and she wants him to explain what's going on. He says that he swapped him for a more expensive hostage, asking what she thinks. She says that she doubts he is all that expensive, but wonders why he's suddenly using formal speech. He says that it's because she's an elf, so she must be older, but he can also feel an immense flow of magic power from her, and a similar flow of magic from Levalio too. So they are definitely both mages, although she's far more skilled. He can tell Levalio's not that bad. She says that if he's here looking for the source of explosives used in the attack on their train, it wasn't them. So he can lower his sword, and they can talk normally. He asks why he's meant to believe that, and she says that if she was the one to attack their family, she wouldn't have been so careless to begin with, as to leave behind any form of evidence. As she starts showing her magic prowess, Karen says that with that much power, she's at least a 7th circle mage, and even Leo's surprised, and she asks him if he's in the mood to talk now, or if he still wants to try going down this hostage route. Levalio and Mason take off their mask, and the leader of the Caligo says that, like she said before, the explosive used in the attack on the Reston family was not supplied by them. They do handle explosives, but those are strictly for experiments. Karen then asks if it was the Kurua merchants. She says that's not the kind of job cowards like the Kurwas could pull off. Karen then tells Levalio to move his damn arm, and Levalio asks what's wrong with him being a little close, and from now on he can just call him Leo like all of his close friends do. Karen says close, my ass, and Mason says that Karen needs to watch his tongue around the prince. Leo tells him not to be stiff, and Mason says that he can't believe that he shares the same name as his kid with a god-awful haircut, but he also mentions how he can't believe that his brother's youngest grandson is such a hooligan. Karen wonders if maybe he knows Halo, but the woman says that it's time to get back to the main topic, and she's sorry for the late introduction. She tells us that her name is Poina, the president of Caligo, and it's an honor to meet the great 2 grandsons of the continent's greatest hero, Halo. As she mentioned earlier, the explosives from the attack were not theirs, but she can tell them who the culprit is, but there is one condition. Karen says he figured as much, and he wants to hear what it is. She says her condition is that they just become friends with Leo. He says getting tangled up with the imperial family is a bit problematic, and it's obvious how people will see the ducal family and the imperial prince getting friendly. They won't see it as a pure friendship. Leo says so what? Kids can be friends with each other if they want, and besides, it's more advantageous for the Reston family. Karen asks in what way? He says of course, because the Reston family will have to start making its move soon, and this will be a good way to put the imperial family and the central nobles on alert. Karen says that he's not a complete madman. Even so, He wonders why he's going this far. Leo sighs, saying that he's willing to do anything that will screw over his father. His dream is to be a first-class disappointment, asking if he understands him. Karen says no, and he's a certified madman. Poina then asks what he will do, as the nights and the tape are long, but they don't have that much time today. He asks what she means by that. She says that the Imperial Guards who came with Special Unit 1 have a different objective. Karen asks what that is, and she says this is the case where the grandsons of the Reston family were attacked, and yet the Imperial Guards are actively trying to solve the case. And she wonders if he ever thought about why. He asks if she's trying to say that the Imperial Guards colluded with the culprit. She says that the answer to that could change depending on who the culprit is, but what's clear is that the Imperial Guards' objective is different from theirs. This document contains everything they've tracked on the culprit's movements in the series of events, and she wants to know if he will accept her proposal. He stares at her, and later we see people moving around more boxes, as Oh-hyun watches, wondering if they can go any faster. We learn that he was actually going to be granted a noble title, and that all the evidence against him would be taken care of after the attack. He says that the title he yearned for is right in front of him, and now he's the one who's about to be taken care of himself. It's all because those damn brats survived the attack, but maybe it's a blessing in disguise, since he got to evacuate his family first. A man then runs in, saying that the knights are storming this place out of nowhere, and Oh-hyun gets nervous, asking if they are the Imperial Guard. We then hear Karen, saying that the Oh-hyun merchants are hard at work, even at night. The assistant tells him that's not the Imperial Guard, and Karen says it's quite a busy household he is here. Oh-hyun recognizes him from the Reston family. Karen says that's right. He's the good-for-nothing noble that he tried to get rid of. Then he says that for a man who's tried to take another life, he seems to care an awful lot about his family. Zeres says that he's brought what he asked for, and Karen thanks him. He then holds up a bloody bag, asking Oh-hyun if he's that curious to see what's inside. Oh-hyun panics, asks if that is his family, and Karen tells him that if he's so curious, to take a look for himself. When he opens the bag, what he sees are the hand members' hands of what he assumes is his family, and he starts breaking down. Karen slaps him, telling him to stop making a scene, asking if he really thinks that those calloused hands belong to his family to begin with. Oh-hyun asks if not his family, then whose hands are they? Karen says they belong to the assassins his business partner sent to harm his family. Oh-hyun starts crying, thanking him for saving them, and Karen tells him to stop celebrating. He conspired with them and planned the attack on his family, and people lost their lives because of it. He only saved his family because they are innocent, but he is not. He's going to spend the rest of his life in the underground prison of the fortress, with endless torture of course. He tells Zeres to take him away. Back to Poina. She says there are a lot of rumors going around about the Emperor's failing health, and she wants to know from Leo what the situation is like in the capital. He says that it's chaos among the nobles because of it, and only the old geezers pushing for war are having a field day, and that the internal conflict with the Imperial Guards is getting worse. She says that the clash between those who've joined hands with the warmongers and those who haven't is intensifying, but, thanks to her, he's gained a reliable supporter. He thanks her, and then says that Karen definitely is on his side now because of his charms, and she says that he wasn't like this when they first met. He says that's true, though. As soon as he arrived in the Tabe territory after barely escaping from the internal strife, his mother was assassinated, and if Mason hadn't been there back then, he probably would have followed his mother in death. If he hadn't met her in the city, he never would have learned magic, and just as the two of them are the reason he is who he is today, Karen will also become an important person in his future. Back to the mayor's place, we hear Gale asking him what that means. Gren says that publicly announcing the facts of the attacks and the investigation details is too much. Gale agrees, saying that if it gets out, it will tarnish the family's prestige, asking if he's okay with that. Gren just wants to know if he's going to hold Karen responsible. Karen says that this is not something he'll have to take responsibility for, and this is just to make it so those behind the scenes can't even think of covering it up, and that Gren will become a righteous mayor who stands against injustice. Zeres recalls Halo telling him to let Karen do as he wants, and he doesn't know what he's planning, but since it's his master's order, he can't go against it, and he's just going to have to watch as Karen's telling everybody to just trust him on this. Back at the Reston house, the butler tells Halo that a message has arrived from Karen. Halo asks if he's really trying to announce the details of the investigation, and damages from the attack. The butler says that's correct. And then Pale enters, asking if he's been called for. Halo says yes, as a message from Karen just arrived, and he tells him pretty much the exact same thing he just read. and that the council has promised their full cooperation to prevent it from happening again, and he asks Pale what he thinks. Pale reads it out, but says that this is a plan that could shatter the political balance in Tabe, and this is about giving power back to the mayor, who was nothing more than a figurehead until now. Halo says indeed, until now the councilmen have held immense power, but announcing that a councilman was involved in a terrorist attack will be a significant blow to them, and he's a reckless brat through and through, but he succeeded in his revenge this time. It's also allowed their family to further increase their influence over Tabe. Pale says that he's grateful that he thinks so highly of his son's abilities, but reminds him that he's only 13, and that he's entrusting way too much responsibility to a young boy. Halo says that he was the one who told him to have faith in his son. A wolf must walk a wolf's path, and he knows that he's worried about his child who just took his first step into the wild, but how about he trust him to the very end, just as he said he would? Pale says that he will. And then Halo says that he's grateful for him, and this should serve as a sufficient warning to anybody in the capital, and to those Imperial Guard lackeys who cling to power, and he says that if someone else were here, they would have surely cut off all of their heads. And he tells Pale to prepare for the coming storm, as the time has come for Reston to move again. Back to Tabe. The mayor says that he's ashamed that such an incident has occurred in their city. For a member of the council to stoop so low for a mere sliver of power, to try and kill the grandson of Halo, the greatest hero on the continent. The citizens start cheering, telling him to get rid of the rotten councilman, and Gren says that to return the city to the citizens, he'll make sure that he puts every effort he has towards that. Leo says that he blends in like a fish in water, and Gale says that Gren is an excellent politician. A great politician never misses an opportunity that comes his way. Leo asks if all politicians in the capital are like that, and he says of course not. The reason that Gren was able to reach such a high position is because he has the skills to back it up. Leo says that the mayor is actually way more impressive than he looks. Gale though is just surprised that a plan made by a 13-year-old was approved by the patriarch of the family, and that Halo sure does think highly of his abilities. He might even be included in the line of succession at this rate, but whether that's a good thing or not, only time will tell. Karen tells Gale he has a question, and he asks if he's okay. Gale asks why he wouldn't be, and Karen says that he's become entangled in a matter involving the interest of the Reston family, and he heard from his mother that he dislikes having personal interests intertwined with his public duties, and he was worried that he made him break his principles. Gale says that sometimes a moment must come when one must break their own principles, and besides, it's not like he really broke any this time. His Majesty the Emperor was also planning to keep those in power here in check, so he's completely fine with everything that's happened. And one day, if something like his principles gets in the way of doing the right thing, he shouldn't hesitate to break through them. And he has something to take care of before returning to the capital, so he's going to be heading out now. As he leaves, Leo asks Karen where that barber from the capital is, but he also wants to know what part of the mayor's speech everybody likes so much. Karen says that it's simple. The mayor declared that he will tear down the established powers, and if the firmly established powers collapse because of this, other people will get an opportunity, so of course they're happy. Leo says that even if he says that, he doesn't understand, and Karen tells him that's because he grew up like a flower in a greenhouse. Leo says that's not something you should be hearing from the richest family in their lineage. That night at Gren's place, Karen tells him that that was a great speech, and thanks to him, everybody has tons of energy. Gren says that it was all thanks to him for giving him a just cause, and Karen says that he's grateful that he put it that way. Gren tells him he's merely stating facts. And then he wants to know about the knights. Karen says additional troops have already been dispatched from the fortress, and Gren laughs, saying as expected of the Duchy of Reston, they sure are quick at everything. Leo asks if this is what they call playing politics. Gren says that they still need to prepare for the capital tomorrow, but he's held them up for too long. Karen says not at all. They also have something to give him. He asks what it is, and Karen reaches into his outfit and pulls out a bag of money, saying that he's gonna need a bit here and there if he's gonna do great things. As soon as he pulls that out, he starts to pog out of his gourd, and Karen tells him that it's just a small something prepared with the profits they made from their magic stone mine in the Bellies territory, and that this is their little secret. Leo, though, of course, never agreed to this. Later, we see them all ready to depart, and Zeres tells Karen that the carriage is almost fully loaded, and that the Imperial Guard will be in charge of the escort to the capital. Karen says that it doesn't sit right with him, but Zeres tells him that it was a matter approved by the Patriarch. Leo says that if Hans is injured, he wants to know if Zeres is going with him. He says he would like to, but he's been tasked with escorting the prisoners and the injured, so instead, Sir Hugo will be in charge of their escort. Karen says that Hugo is the son of his eldest uncle, Tails, and a genius who reached the initial phase of 6-star at the age of 28. Karen says that he doesn't like anything about this. And then a car pulls up. As Levalio starts greeting them, he waves out the window, asking if they had any breakfast. Karen asks if maybe they just can't go to the capital instead, but Zeres says they have too. Levalio asks Karen if he's not excited to go to the capital together. He says not really, but he wants to know what he's doing here. Levalio says that he knew he's not happy about being escorted by the Imperial Guard, and he gets it, since they have a rocky relationship together, but he shouldn't worry, as he's here with him after all. He says that he's been waiting for him, as a man approaches them, saying that he was delayed finishing up the case of the destroyed railway. Levalio tells him that's okay, and we learn that his name is Ryuk. He says that they should start with introductions, and introduces Karen and Leo. Ryuk then introduces himself, saying that they can just call him by his name, and it's an honor to escort the scions of House Reston to the capital. Karen says the reason why the Imperial Guard isn't actively investigating the attack on the duchy is because they are probably in on it, just like Poina said. He asks if destroying the railway is really that important. Ignoring an attack on the descendant of the very family that put the emperor on the throne is too much. Ryuk says that destroying the railway, which His Majesty owns, is plenty of reason, so naturally, the Imperial Guard must prioritize investigating an act of treason. Karen starts to get annoyed, saying if that's the case, he must have been busy, so they'll accept it for now. Levalio says that the conversation seems to be over, so they should depart already. Ryuk says of course, and Zeres tells Karen that he endured well, as there's no need to ruin their relationship with the Imperial Guard, before they even find out who was behind the attack on their family. Karen says that he's right, for now at least, and it's only a suspicion, but if he finds proof that the Imperial Guards are acting as lapdogs for some other influential family, he'll crush them himself, and he can't believe that the Imperial family might be acting as mere servants for some nobles. Even when he was forced to sell his soul to a demon, he never stooped that low. Karen though, on the way there, says it's quieter than he expected. Levalio asks if he wanted to chat or something, and Karen says no. Levalio says that he was curious about the mayor's speech of Tabe, saying that he knows what he's doing, and that he's trying to make the mayor the center of power instead of the council, and he's trying to use his family as the backing for that. Karen asks why he thinks such, and Leo tells him that all that talk about justice was nothing but a pretext. While re-establishing the prestige of the Reston family, which could have been shaken by the incident, it turned out to be a brilliant move to gain a reliable ally, who will be useful in the power struggles to come, and he knows that was his plan all along. Karen says that it looks like all the time he spent cozying up to the black merchants wasn't a waste. Levalio says that he could say he came up from the streets himself, as he's been through all sorts of things just to survive, so surely he would have that much sense to begin with. Karen says that that sounds believable. But then Leo starts to hear a sound in his pocket. When he takes it out, he hears Poina asking if he's traveling well. He says of course, but it's low-key a little frustrating, as Karen is totally ignoring him. She says that he shouldn't try fighting too much, as they're meant to be friends. Karen says they're not though, and she asks what happened to their deal. He says he never agreed to it, as he needs to hear the conditions first. She laughs, saying that he got her there, but he should consider it, as her proposal won't be bad for him either. He says that they lack the mutual trust to be making such statements. She asks what he means, and he says that if he were to join hands with a merchant guild run by an elf without permission, his head could be on the line with the elders. She says that he's misunderstanding something. She wants to partner with him, not his family name. He asks why that is, and she says it's of course because good products are always worth investing in, and of course it's also true that Leo needs a friend. Karen says he doesn't like that last part the most, and she says that if he needs more trust, to just think of the information she gave him as a gift, and if he ever needs anything, to contact her through the crystal spear, as that's all she has for now. Leo laughs, telling Karen they should get along, and he says the two of them are exactly alike in their self-centeredness, and he hands him the thing so he can call her whenever he wants. Levalio looks out the window, saying it looks like they're almost there, and when Karen glances out the window, he sees a giant gate being opened, as he's being welcomed to the capital. Inside, they head to where they're staying. Leo tells him that if there's anything he wants to see, call him, as the tour is free. Karen says no thanks, and Leo drives off, saying they'll be seeing each other soon anyway, so not to be disappointed. As he leaves, Ryuk says that he'll be on his way as well. Karen thanks him, and Ryuk tells him not to mention it, and they'll meet again later. As they ride off, Karen says of course they will, but he doesn't know when they will. They actually get that chance. Leo, with the awful haircut, asks if he knows what that brightly shining tower is. Karen tells him that it's the magic tower. Leo asks if that's the one with the mages in it, and he says of course, because it's in the name. Leo says that it looks really cool, and Karen agrees. He says it looks like the mages spent a fortune on it, and it's completely different from 50 years ago. The magic tower is finally starting to feel real, now that it's in the capital. He smiles, and says this is no different from him returning to his own grave. Hugo then says that it's about time, and when they turn around, they're surprised that they didn't even sense him there. Leo starts tweaking, and Karen says that he couldn't sense even his presence, so his level sure is up there. This is one of the people they call the greatest geniuses of the empire. He says that they've had a long journey, and they've done well. Hugo says that if he's not mistaken, this is their first time meeting. Karen says it's a pleasure to meet him. Hugo tells him that if he had known that their youngest was so impressive, he would have visited the fortress sooner. Karen says that he flatters him, and he's just as impressive as the rumors say. Leo just wonders if they're going to be okay. Then a woman exits, welcoming them. Hugo turns, and Karen calls out for his grandmother. She says that it's been so long, saying that he's grown so much. He says it's good to see her. She says it's good to see him too. She's prepared a bath for him to wash up and rest. Leo thanks her. Karen says that grandfather has some business to attend to, so he'll be late. She says that she was told beforehand, that they can go ahead and head inside, as they need to buy brooches for the banquet tomorrow. He needs to make sure he goes to bed early. They'll move his luggage to his room as soon as it arrives. Hugo just stares at his hand, asks if his mana was really pushed back. He says that when he sent out his mana to test his strength, he used his own mana to clash against his, not the calm sea like azure mana, but a mana like the violent waves of a raging storm. He recalls his father Tails telling him to keep a close eye on his cousins, so they don't get into any more trouble in the capital. Hugo says that he's definitely someone he needs to keep an eye on, and he wonders just who in the world Karen is. After Karen takes his bath, he gets into his room and plops down into his bed, saying that he can't really be sent to his mana without any warning, and that Hugo is an unpredictable dude, though he is a lot different from Tails, but whatever, he's back in his own grave after 50 years, so why not unwind with some booze that he swiped from the prince's carriage. As he goes to open it, he looks towards his blade and pours some on Guillotine. Guillotine asks what this is, saying that if he's going to give him something, to at least make it his blood. Karen says he just needed someone to talk to, and Guillotine says as expected, he's not normal. Karen tells him to understand that this place is like a grave to him. Guillotine says that he knows, but Karen finds it weird, seeing as he never told him this. Guillotine tells him that he read his memories, but Karen brushes it off, saying that's what he expected out of a magic sword to begin with. Guillotine says he's not one of those. Karen says that the blue dragon said he was the sword he used in his past life. Guillotine says that he doesn't know why, but he became a magical sword somehow. Karen asks if he has any memories from back then, but Guillotine says that he doesn't, and when he finds who returned him into a magical sword, he's going to cut their head off 1,000 times. But Karen tells him that he will only be able to do that once, but he's also curious why he doesn't ask the blue dragon himself after going to the North Sea. Guillotine says that Karen's way too weak for that, but Karen says he can just find out on his own then. Guillotine says that childish is to be sulking at a blade. They continue this little banter, but Karen says he has to figure this out. He'll figure out the real meaning behind his second life. It should have been impossible without some great power at play. Guillotine then says that he wants some more. Then he walks over and pours him a little more. That morning, they head out onto the streets of the capital, and everybody's trying to sell their products. Karen tells Leo that he's embarrassing him, as he looks like some country bumpkin. Leo asks what's wrong with it, but Hugo agrees, saying that as a member of the family, he needs to maintain his dignity, and haircut his ass. He also tells Karen to be respectful to his older brother when they're in public, and when it's just the two of them, they can be informal, but in public, he must be polite for the sake of the family's honor. Karen asks if that means he can speak casually with Hugo too when they're alone. Hugo changes the subject, saying that they've almost arrived at the shop. Karen wonders if he's doing this shit on purpose, and spots a clothing store that catches his eye. He asks Hugo if he can stop by here, and Hugo says this is a place that makes clothes for the elderly, asking if he likes it. Even Leo says that he seems to be a bit old-fashioned, and Karen tells him that trends are cyclical. Leo asks if that's the case, and Karen asks what he would even know about fashion to begin with. Leo says that it's not like he doesn't know anything, but Hugo finds it a bit odd as they enter the store. A man says for such young nobles to visit his shop, he wants to know if this is truly alright, and he's sorry, but he doesn't make clothes typically that are worn by children of the younger generations, but he'll do his best to craft an outfit for him, and he wants to know who it is that wants the clothes. Karen says that it's for him, but he recognizes the old man, as when he was back as Kane, he was way younger, and he says that he told him many times that his outfit was very hard to repair. Karen says that he's sorry, but his skills are so good, he can fight without holding back. The kid says that if he just needs it repaired by next week, he can get it done, and he's really hoping for a quiet day. He's now taking Karen's measurements, saying that since it's for the Grand Duke's grandson, he'll put in his utmost effort. Karen's surprised he recognized the family instantly. He says of course it would be harder to not recognize their crest, as this was a regular spot for Sir Kane, a close friend of the Grand Duke. Karen asks if he remembers much about him, and the old man says of course, as he doesn't know how he was to the others, but to him, he was a very warm person, though he's sure he never even knew his name. Karen says that now that he thinks about it, for all the years that he came into the shop, he always just called him Kid, but surprisingly, being remembered by someone feels nice. Karen then asks for his name, and the old man finally tells him that his name is Ruin. A woman then barges in, asking her grandpa if he heard the news, as Kane's enemy, the grandson of Grand Duke Halo, entered the capital, but as soon as she starts saying that, she realizes who's in the room with her. She freezes up, and Karen just wonders why he's being called Halo's enemy. If you've watched till the end, comment, "Good doctor," to let me know. Subscribe for more videos like this, leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.